welcome. My name is Dean. We're back. We're here, and I am drinking yet another delicious beverage to start this program. Ryan loves that. Welcome, Ryan? You like that? You like it when I do that? You like it when I do that?
Yeah. Don't do that. Don't do that.
He hates it. Anyway, welcome. That's Ryan Lindley, Sheeple
You got
Shepherd
a lot
podcast.
of ticks, Linz?
Yeah, that's Lachlan Cross, 95.7 Cruise FM in Edmonton. We all have delicious beverages in our hands. And last week when you were on lock, I was drinking mine.
Jewelry.
And what's that? What were you saying?
I can't wear a watch or most jewelry.
Oh,
I lose my mind.
Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it.
Sometimes dogs are brown.
No,
everyone likes unicorns.
Saying you were in good company with your ticks, all your little ticks, your quirks.
Okay. I didn't know that you were doing
proclivities
and perks and ticks. No, so last week you're gone. There I am drinking a coffee, and I make this just simple noise. It's just this simple, like I'm enjoying my coffee noise. And Linz does one of these. He does one. He's like that. He's like, gets all poo-poo over the whole thing. And I'm like, no, dude, it's a good thing. You should like it. Then he's like, I've got a condition.
No, the talk, Lachlan, was about people that chew, that you can hear chewing. I can't stand hearing people eat. Like, I fucking hate it. And there's actually
there's a name for that.
Yeah, there's an actual thing. And it became
being a pussy, actually.
It became a very big topic of discussion for like 3 days on Twitter because of Dean. And I said, I'll even put a poll out and see who agrees with me. It was like 90% of the pussies said that I was right, and 10% of the Dean Blundell said he was right. So,
right, they're not
but then the conversation went on into the drinking thing, and I said people that over exacerbate the that's a fucking problem. Like that's a mental illness. I think that's actually a mental problem.
Like you think people do it because they're looking for attention when they make those noises with their mouths when they're eating or they're drinking?
That could be it, or they're like, are you trying to convince yourself you're refreshed? I don't get it. Like I don't, like, they do it at home by themselves too. That's the best part. Yep. Like their cats can hear them because that's the only people that'll hang out with them. And
I don't know if I've ever done it, but I'm feeling like I need to now.
Yeah, you should. That's rude, by the way. The cats are only hanging out with them. You're saying that everybody that likes to enjoy a nice beverage and maybe make a nice enjoyment noise
probably doesn't have a lot of friends.
Drinking the beverage doesn't have a lot of friends.
Yeah, I would safely assume that. I would safely assume nobody's hanging out with them.
As a matter of fact, I got too many friends. I was saying this the other day. I'm like, I got way too many friends. I don't need as many friends as I have because you're part of the friends group list. You're all part of the oh, come over, let's have some. And you're like, oh, I'm good. I don't want to. Or you're like, you get phone calls from people. Like I get 1,000 phone calls a day, and I'm not even that friendly of a person. Like,
that's not true.
That isn't true.
You're quite friendly.
I'm not that friendly of a person. But it's funny how so many people nowadays, specifically because of the pandemic, big thing is for people. No one's making any friends. Like adults are putting out APBs to join friend groups on Twitter. People do it all the time. Have you seen some of these?
No.
Yeah, you would think that asking for friends would be embarrassing on social media, right? If I didn't have any friends, if I wasn't so flush with friendship, I would never go, hey, anyone want to be my friend?
But you can't say that because I don't think you've ever been in that position, right? So maybe people that are at that point.
Yeah,
I think Locke made a good point on his radio show the other day about this when he was talking with the boys about how some people just find it like that's their way of doing it, right? Like and I don't know. I don't think it's that weird, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Just go out, go to a bar, put a mask on. If you're afraid of COVID, go put a mask on and go to a bar and meet people like you always did. Like I don't get people with dating apps. Like I've never understood the internet dating thing either, and it makes no sense to me.
Well, you've never had.
I want to give it a go.
You want to give internet data? I don't think you do.
I would I've actually thought about asking the wife just to see if she'll let me take a tear at Tinder, and just see if they'll line up. I want to line up out the door, put my address up there, and go. All right.
Have your pick there, stud.
It's not like I'm going to bang them. I just want to go on Twitter to see what it's like, to see what it's all about. I'll never respond to them. I swear to God. Locke, where are you going? Nowhere. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to get gas. I'll be back in an hour. Locke, why do you look so disheveled when you go get gas? Don't worry about it. I'm not on Tinder. Nothing's going on. That's what'll happen. So don't do it. But anyway, back to my point is there's this video that I actually saw today. I wanted this beautiful young lady. And she's like, I don't have any friends. Like last time, I'm so afraid to make friends. And I'm like, I watched it. I'm like, I don't know whether to feel sorry for her or to mock her, but I kind of lean towards feeling sorry for her because, you know, mocking people on Twitter that don't have friends traditionally doesn't do you any favors. But let's watch this together.
It's not.
Yeah,
it's not. Yeah.
No, but watch this. Like, this is a legitimate. And my friend Dave Levitt, who's like a board game guy, he's like a big board game enthusiast. Great guy, great follow. He put it out because he puts out videos like this too as well. Seriously, no surprise. He's a board game guy.
Wow, sounds like a real fun at parties kind of
No,
guy.
he is. He totally is. Like, he's a great dude. But watch this. It's fun.
What's his name?
Friends. I have been going to therapy recently, and I've been telling her, like, I really just want more friends. I have a hard time making them. I have a chronic illness, so I'm inside a lot. Can't go out and do things. And I feel lonely. I feel really lonely, if I'm being honest with you. And I'm just wondering, how does everybody make friends? Does anybody want to be my friend? If not, I understand. But is anybody out there else looking for friends? And if so, like, how do you do it? I don't know.
Might want to read a book about confidence.
Oh, come on. Don't you dare. She's adorable.
She's a
Poor
sweetheart.
thing.
Although that is funny. I mean, listen, she can still be a sweetheart. We can feel sorry for her, and I can still laugh at Locke going, hey, maybe pick up a book and read about confidence. That's a funny fucking little line. I like that one.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Well, actually, no, you know, that is a Lachlan line. Like, Lachlan's the rub dirt on it kind of guy. So,
Suck it up. I have on the fucking street corner with a sign. I need friends. Who wants to be my fucking friend? It's literally that easy, dude. When I was a kid, I remember we used to move town to town, and like, it's literally every year my dad bought a new radio station or got involved in a new thing. He was like a transient, and he would go to different towns across Canada, and we'd be like, oh fuck, grade 2, different year, grade 3, different place, grade 4, different province. Like, it was yearly. It was I was like an army kid, but
I was just gonna say it like an army brat, but much lamer.
Yeah, radio trans. But we used to go door to door in new towns every single summer. We'd move in the summer, never failed. And every single summer, what we would do is we would go door to door and go, hey, I'm Dean. It's my brother Dave. Our sister's an idiot, so don't worry about her. But you want to be friends? Like, do you have any kids in the house so we can be friends with? And we'd get like drunk guys answering the door, hanging onto their dicks, going, hey, you want to come in for a coffee? We're like, no, we're just looking for friends, and you don't appear to be the guy. But that's how we did it. Like, that's literally now you can't do that here, but I don't even know if there are dating apps for like just friends, or there are apps for people that you can just go, hey, listen, I'm looking for like a group of friends to hang out with. Here are my likes, here are my dislikes. Cause I'm watching that and I felt so sorry for her. And then the entrepreneur in me got going, and I'm like, it's got to be a friends dating site out there for people like this, where you can like, hey, a bunch of guys that like going to Raptor games, they're willing to take an extra person with them because they
can't do that because it just turned into somebody trying to show their dick.
I was just gonna say,
it's all it'll be.
You're right. Like, do you guys believe in platonacy? Do you think that's a thing?
Like, you can be friends with a female?
Too.
Like, just like out of like, you go out searching for somebody to be friends with. Yeah, I know now, but imagine being her age. And you're the same age. Do you believe in platonacy? Do you believe like they're like in 100% like honest, true? I just want to a platonic,
like between a guy and a girl.
Yeah, two straight people. You believe that they would literally just go out to look for that?
Yes, because
I always had a problem.
I have a couple of female friends that I'm legitimately just friends with that I will hang out with on a monthly, weekly basis. Yeah,
I agree. When now in our age, you're absolutely right. But I mean, at her age, when you were her age, could you have done that?
No, I'd be too embarrassed. I'd be fucking.
I find with that dynamic, which you're mentioning. And regardless of age, I think the best sort of strategy is because men have dirty thoughts constantly, right?
No, not
so
me.
Just keep those to yourself. Because if you want to have a healthy friendship with a female, telling her what you've thought about doing to her is going to probably not bode well in the friendship side of things. And
No.
unfortunately, this is something that women need to realize is that if you have a male friend,
here we go. What women need to realize by Lachlan Cross. I can't wait for this.
Mansplain 101.
You're on your own.
He's probably thought about doing something sexually to you. You need to wrap your head around that. And if you're okay with that, right, then you'll be able to have a healthier, more honest relationship. You don't have to
why
talk
is it all
about
on the guy? Why
sit
is it
down
on?
and-
You're talking about it from the guy's perspective. Stone Seawitch, she tweets, she sends a comment in the comment section. Women have dirty thoughts too, just so you know. Like, I'm friends with a couple of women who've said, "Hey, you want to take this to the next level?" And I'm like, "No, I'm good." So it goes both ways. Just letting you know.
Never comes up for me.
It's never been a problem. It's never posed an issue.
Never been an issue.
You've never had a female friend of yours come up and go, "Locke, listen, the way you talk about your balls, how your toes look in sandals, I can't get enough. Do you think we could take this to the next level?"
How was your dump yesterday, buddy? You know, like, she's not asking those questions.
No, Texas is very special.
Yeah.
I've always struggled with relationships, like with friendships with other women. I have lots of female acquaintances that I'm quite fond of, but I don't have any close relationships with women. I don't really think I ever have, to be honest with you.
I have one in my life that I've been friends with for over 20 years, and it was one of those. It was never, like, the opportunity was there. It just never went that way. So it's, you know, but I still don't think it's like, I don't think it's a normal. It's not part of your makeup.
Like, for dudes to just go and hang around with chicks or a female, like, for a dude, like, if a group of women are like, "Hey, listen, there's 3 of us that are going to the movies. You want to come with us?" I'd be like, "No, I really don't."
No, that
and
sounds
it's not
lame.
because I can't be friends with lots of women at the same time. It's because it just looks weird. It looks like they're taking pity on you or something like that, right? Like, and here's the other thing: I wouldn't trust myself in a group of like 3 different women to not go, I might be interested in that. Yeah, she's on. Do you know what I mean? Not that I wouldn't like start getting all handsy in the movie theater, being a weirdo. No, I don't disagree with you. I'm saying it goes both ways. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it is a difficult exercise.
That's also a horrible dynamic.
Female, if you're a dude, and the other way around too. What's that?
That's also a horrible dynamic. Like, one guy and 3 women going out in a social event. You're not getting a word in edgewise. You're not doing it. You're not offering anything to that conversation. You know what I mean? No. Unless you're like a super fabulous gay dude, you're not doing anything for that group. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't get it. I wouldn't get what they're talking about. I wouldn't even want to be involved in the conversations, to be honest with you. Like, that's just me. Like, it's like, hey, can we ask, like, unless they were like, "Hey, can we ask you a question about wieners?" I'd be like, yeah, all in. What do you want to talk about? But if they're like, "Hey, can we ask you a question about our friend Chantel, who's in a tough relationship right now?" I'd be like, "No, because I'm not going to betray the confidence of another man I don't know. Sorry, I'm just not going to do that. I'm on team dude. It's just never going to happen." Yeah. Right? Because I can't think like that.
I had an interesting conversation with a friend of mine last night I haven't seen in a long time, and he popped over and we had a couple of drinks, maybe 20 drinks.
I know. You called me. You called me shithoused, and he's like, "Dean, I need to tell you something because I'm wasted and I won't remember it." And then it led to a 40-minute conversation with his buddy Greg.
Yeah. And now I can't remember what we called about.
I do. I remember what we talked about.
Maybe we'll bring it up later.
We're going to. It's part of the conversation, yeah.
Probably very unimportant. But anyway, we were talking about somebody that we both know, a mutual friend, female, and he was asking me questions because this relationship with this female did not end well between the two of us, and we do not talk anymore. Actually, she also goes out of her way on social media on a fairly regular basis and shit posts me because she believes something that's not true. It's not worth getting into. And I'm well over it. But I considered her a friend, and like a close friend, and I was good friends with her for quite some time. And then we worked together, and then it just, and he was asking me, he was like, I found this woman intriguing, interesting, because she's crazy. And he was like, "And you never thought about like sleeping with her?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "You're lying." And I'm like, "I swear to God," because she was one of the most annoying people I have ever met, and would never shut up.
Yeah, you can't find. It doesn't matter how hot a chick is, or the opposite, in my opinion.
And I liked her.
It doesn't matter how hot that person is. If they're high maintenance and annoying, I cannot be around them at all. Like if someone, you know how guys are like, oh, my dick doesn't know any different, man. I'll do anything. It's like, no, my dick knows differently.
And
I
didn't like that my whole
limp
life.
the second someone starts crying, or insta limp when someone's
crying.
This is terrible. I can't, like, and it's all day. I'm like, dude, that doesn't matter. My ex, unbelievably attractive. Oh, just a nightmare to be around, like, all the time. And I'm like, not interested. And everybody's like, how could you break up with her? She saw it. I'm like, easy, breezy, lemon squeezy. I mean, spend 5 minutes talking to her, right?
Yeah, no, it's true. I totally agree.
Buddy Greg. Yeah, I never at one point, and I swear, because I had my sniffer on how crazy she was right out of the gates, and never at one point was I even remotely interested. And if it had presented itself, which it would not have, I would not have been able to do a thing.
No.
Like my old PP would not have been able to do anything in that situation. And drop dead gorgeous, this woman. Beautiful, beautiful woman. Yeah,
I agree. And to Dean's point about the, my dick doesn't know any different. That just shows that's a level of intelligence showing right there, where you can't see ahead. Yeah, well, and you can't see ahead to how much of a dumpster fire that's going to be in the future. Like to and the work and just the mental anguish you're going to go through,
and the reassuring,
the wiping of the tears.
Happens. Yeah, are we together now? Is this like whoa,
what are we?
Whoa. That was a good time. That was all it was. Relax. But what about us? I'm like, no.
A little personal here.
Why are we now? What can I call us?
Yeah.
Do you want to meet my mom?
Yeah.
But the thing is, no. We have to turn the tables on this too. Like, I'm a lot of work.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you don't fucking say.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I am pretty sure that I have dried up countless vaginas just by being in the same room with them. No, I'm well aware of it. I know this works both ways. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm no peach. You know what's great about that line about the things that you've dried up in your time? As soon as you said it, our boy Mr. MUBIN SHaikh hopped into the green room, and I saw him go, what the fuck did I just walk into? Please welcome Mr. MUBIN's Osama bin Grillin. How are you, dude? Sorry about that. That was like your intro, and he's talking about how he makes women really disgusted. That guy right above you, Lachlan Cross. Sorry about that.
Yeah. I and then I'm looking at the shirt, and now I'm like, okay, what the hell have I signed up for here?
Yeah.
By the way, you go to the Locker Room merch page. You can get to a link by going to my Twitter profile. Yeah. And you too can own this shirt.
Support local glory holes.
How long before you think Meta will have VR glory holes?
Great question.
And you actually have to buy like a piece of hardware.
Think about what's happening with Meta and that whole virtual reality, and maybe we can get into that, just all the shit that's going on in the world, but really, really weird stuff, because we're already starting to look for, well, how are terrorists and extremists going to use Meta and virtual reality and things like that? Oh yeah. How do you intercept those communications? Right?
Huh. I wouldn't even have thought of that until you brought it up.
I was in another rabbit hole before I came on this. So
yeah, it's funny because
glory holes or Meta?
No, deradicalization. I think because I texted him a couple days ago, and I'm like, hey man, I'd love for you to come on and talk about the Secret Service missing texts and the J6 stuff and deradicalization of some of our dumb white people. I can say that because I'm a white person. I'm just not as dumb as them. Some of our dumb extremists that we have going on in this country. And I'm like, can you do 3:00 on Wednesday? He's like, I got some deradicalization from 1:30 to 3:30, so I might be able to pop in then. And I'm like, that's fucking hilarious. Like, it's just some guys just, I'm involved in a deradicalization process for a couple hours, but I'll try to pop on.
Is there a chance you can somehow break into our networks and do it for the entire country of trucker convoy people?
You do it in mass,
possibly.
If you can deradicalize one dude, you could scale that up, Mubin. And that's you can deradicalize the whole fucking country, couldn't you?
That's like mind control, man. We don't admit that we do that.
Did you catch the key operative word in that sentence, by the way?
Yeah. Can I read that email that I got, that email complaint I got to Mubin? Because maybe he'll actually have an idea of how to respond to this. Yeah. Because I was just going to be a dick.
Yeah, please.
So we gotta we got a complaint, and it's funny you're talking about this de-radicalization. I won't say this individual's name, but it came to me from my boss and just said, hey, just whenever we get a complaint, he sends them to me. Just say, hey, heads up, got a complaint about the show this morning, la, 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 la. And then I responded back, can I respond to that? And he was like, yes. And he just doesn't want to deal with it. That's one, but also I don't think he knows how to deal with this. And I've been thinking about it all morning. So she's like, or he, there's no gender here. I have to say that I am sick of you continually pushing Trudeau's propaganda. First with Bonnie Henry's glory holes. We make fun of glory holes all the time on the show, so she's missing the point there. And all the COVID misinformation. And now I just heard you going on about the Ukraine-Russia non-war. After all, would you take their child? Would you take their child to a war zone to enjoy a concert? I don't know what that's about. I have now turned you off and don't believe I will ever tune you in again. Like, what's that? Like,
Okay.
What do you say to somebody like that?
Well, first of all, I think it was lost in translation because you had a hard time reading it.
I'm sorry. It's not. I was trying to fix the grammar as I was going.
Don't.
So I didn't.
That's what makes him so good.
Yeah. But what he's saying, I think Usama bin Grillin, I think what he's saying is this: is that he got a letter from somebody, a legitimate complaint, which his business takes seriously, which affects him, from someone who thinks that Trudeau's a child groomer and everybody that votes for him is a child groomer. That the Russia-Ukraine war isn't a war, and they're going to insert themselves into his life, like we see every day on Twitter, and like we see where these weirdos are like, "Oh yeah, Nuremberg trials, I'm coming for you," like all that stuff. How do we respond properly to them? Because I know how I respond to it, and it's not how you're supposed to if you want to be part of the solution, right? But what is everybody else's response supposed to be to the legitimate insanity of people who are denying what they see with their eyes, denying what they hear with their ears, in favor of legitimate conspiratorial, wacky, extremist bullshit?
Yeah, easy question. Maybe it's my cynicism. I think cynicism and realism go hand in hand often. At a human level, we have to just admit and understand that we're going to have people like this, right? Just like we'll never get rid of crime. We'll never get rid of certain things that are just, unfortunately, pathological to us as human beings. Ignorance, lack of ability to think critically. These are also things that happen. You're going to get people who just deny reality, all right, and they replace it with their own invented reality, which is based on, again, conspiracy theories, things that are just outright false, things that are partially true, which is enough to put a hook in it, and then can go to town with it, running off into the field of conspiracy theories. So you're ultimately never going to get rid of it. But in terms of what you can do about it, I mean, at what level? We live in a society where, people are allowed to say whatever they want. You have social media companies that platform these people and allow them to amplify their views. And then when you try to raise the question, even that, hey, maybe we should do something about this, then it becomes, oh, you're controlling the narrative, you're becoming the censors and things like that. And that's partially true. You do have to, at a point say, no, this is bullshit. This should not be allowed on the platform. And who does that? And who's given the authority and the right to do that? So I think we're in a society where if we're allowing people to just say whatever they want, and we're allowing companies to just platform them and allow those messages to amplify and spread far and wide, what can you do about it, really? We're just going to continue dealing with this sort of stuff. And let me just finish by saying, even I always use the example of the Spanish flu that was in the US. There were anti-maskers. They called themselves the Anti-Masker League. They met in public places deliberately to flip the bird to those who called on masking. So this sort of shit's been going on ever since there were vaccines. You've had anti-vaxxers ever since there's been science and reason and ration and logic. You get people who are the opposite.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so listen, you do a ton of work in de-radicalization, right? That's kind of your gig. Like you do a bunch of stuff, right? You help like with counterterrorism measures in different governments, different organizations around the world. It's what you do on a regular basis. You yourself were a jihadi. You were, there's a great fucking documentary about MUBIN called Undercover Jihadi. It's absolutely incredible. It kind of details your whole story about you being radicalized and then not going through the radicalization process. 9/11 happens. We've had you on to tell the story many times, but that's what led you into this. Is that there was a wake up call for you? There was a point where you're like, this doesn't look right. I can't, and yet someone come alongside you, and you're just one person, but you have the ability to have this big megaphone, go and help at a grassroots level, and you have steps that you take, and you've got things that you do to help people understand that they are in a rabbit hole. They're down the well. They're not well. They're having a hard time with objective reality, and they're taking this stuff and putting it on themselves as if they're martyrs or heroes or warriors, right? That was foreign to me, and with all due respect, it was a Muslim problem. It was other people's issues. It was a Middle Eastern thing to me and every other honky that didn't really have the chance to kind of interact.
Dating yourself now, man.
Honky, you like that word?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I'm allowed to use it, right? Like I think, listen, if I'm going to culturally appropriate it, it's going to be against my own people, and it's going to be for fun. But
my buddy Indian Al calls me a honky.
Well, he
also says I'm his favorite settler.
But there are several of us in the, I don't know, let's just say white community. There are several people who are going like, hang on a second. This is exactly that now, right? What we're seeing in Canada, across the United States, is radicalization en masse. It is, and it's been this slow burn for a long period of time. So how do you look at through the lens of the things that you do and what you've done, and you being a former radicalized jihadi, and someone that counteracts this stuff by education, how do you look at the people that we see in this country, not just the people, but the politicians in this country, and you can even take it a step further, the institutions in this country that have these radicalized evangelical extremists, which is what they are in my mind, in key positions where a lot of us feel fucking unsafe, right? Like, and I don't think it's like, I think it's our job to police this, but I don't know, like, the similarities in your mind. Do you not see them kind of coming together? Like, this is a movie you've seen before intimately, correct?
Yeah, it's interesting you frame it that way. It was, radicalization and extremism and terrorism was seen as a foreign thing. Of course, we attributed a lot of that to religion and culture and different things. We really didn't like talking about the role that, military interventions have also played in that radicalization process. I can't remember who said the quote, it could have been me, but wars radicalize, right? And radicalize both sides, right? So if you just want to think about post 9/11, how it radicalized the U.S. apparatus and what it made the U.S. apparatus do in response to that terrorist attack. And so, they went on to this war in Afghanistan, and then incredibly opened a second front in Iraq in 2003. And that's when shit really went downhill. They should have just stayed and finished the job in Afghanistan. Why open the thing in Iraq? It was about oil, of course. Yeah. But it just shows you that this is the environment from which all this radicalization is happening. So because of those foreign wars, you're seeing radicalization over there, not thinking that it would be something that you would see in your own backyard and within your own ranks. And so a number of things you can attribute to, why that happened, right? I mean, an easy point of reference is the Obama election. Membership and participation in hate groups went up, like, I think it was like 500%. It's like a ridiculously low several 100% increase. Then another easy marker to use is, of course, Trump, right? A demagogue who really, I mean, he's still, what he's done in terms of platforming these sorts of views, normalizing them and making it easier for what were once conceived to be extreme views into the mainstream and become more accepted in larger mainstream organizations like political parties, which whatever their names are. And again, I hate the partisanship, aspect of it. I really want to say that I don't want to say one party or whatever, but I'm generally a liberal person. Okay. I believe in human rights and basic things. And, we should be trying to do good for each other. And then there's another side, which I'm not going to say it's just always conservative, but that fundamentalist thinking and worldview, which unfortunately, and obviously when you're looking at a white Christian majority area, North America, let's say, I mean, it's still very much majority white, you're going to find, of course, because that's the majority group, you're going to find within that fundamentalists, and then within that, those who then use the fundamentalism to go into extremism. Sometimes, the overlap between the two is like hard to distinguish. Then you have what's called conservative views, but are those all just monikers for the same thing? So when you start to see this in the white majority, don't be surprised. Obviously, you're gonna see that any majority culture, you're gonna find groups that are extremist or fundamentalist or whatever. So it's interesting that we're seeing this now. I mean, it's not to the point where people are committing serious violent offenses. Let's say that, right? I'm totally in with the domestic extremism threat, both in the US and Canada. It's very real. There are serious violent plots and threats related to those groups, but they're still not at a level where they're committing the kinds of attacks that ISIS and other attackers are doing. So, I was, going on a thing yesterday about with the Taliban now in power in Afghanistan, Al Qaeda and other groups are like their headquarters has expanded and grown. They're always wanting to attack the US. And so now they're talking about, well, is there, an Al Qaeda attack coming down the pipeline? So while we're watching all these different threats under the frame of radicalization and extremism, we have to also understand and accept that, of course, even within our easygoing Canadian context, there are people that are going to do some really bad shit, right? So whether it's an active shooter type situation or an attack on a place of worship, this is what we've seen in Canada already from the white supremacist threat, right? And we haven't had jihadi attacks in the US, in Canada, like other countries have had. The biggest attacks that we've had here was the Quebec mosque attack, the London attack of the Muslim family just out and about, and many attempts by others to attack synagogues and other places. So I'm trying to put it into context. I'm not trying to equate, one as the other, but we're still trying to say that it's still within that same spectrum of radicalization.
Is it a? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And concern, right? Like we should be concerned about the growing.
Oh,
numbers.
we are watching them very closely.
Yeah, are you? Is Canada like? Obviously, we don't know anything. Like, I think people look at Trudeau. Sorry, or Linz, just to back up that question. But we look at what's going on, and we're like, "Well, fuck, who's going to stop this? Like, who's going to start speaking sense to these guys? Like, when are we going to start prosecuting people for hate speech, which would go a long way in this country, which we forgot to do. There's laws against it. But is there more going on in this country to combat, extremism, theocratic, white dominionist extremism, the way that we, as seriously as we took, what happened with the Toronto 18, which you were involved in? Like,
yeah, this is the whole point about equal application of investigatory powers, right? That the agencies have, right? So I, for one, for example, don't understand why we spend so much resources of national security agency resources on, for example, First Nations protest issues. Okay, total waste of time and money, in my opinion. Okay, things that can be dealt with outside of the national security framework. So coming on to domestic extremists and whatnot, the bigger concerns come from the fact that there is nexus between them and police services. Okay, we've seen this. I mean, this is not surprising or whatever. This is also a thing happening in the U.S.
That thin blue line thing, yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, also more so in the U.S., that whole radicalization and the violent aspects of it related to January 6th and the involvement of, people, individuals who were police, either former or current, military members as well. In the Canadian context, we're seeing a tamer version of that. So just as you see that what they call themselves Veterans for Freedom, There's still a high visibility of veterans groups, even law enforcement groups, in some of this convoy stuff. It's all partisan. It's all because they're just anti-Trudeau. That's really what it comes down to. It's a political thing. Trudeau is, the other team that is a symbol of the other team that has won, right? So, quote unquote, in the elections. Two liberal parties basically coming and making a coalition, the NDP and the Liberal Party. Those are the grievances that they see.
What was that word?
Coalition, I think you used. Yeah.
Coalition, yeah, minority government coalition that we have. I'm saying that the people who are frustrated.
Yeah, Linz hates it. Linz hates when we use the word coalition. That's why, and Locke loves it because he thinks it's ridiculous, and I don't really care. I'm just on the outside looking.
Well, I'm just a partnership. I don't know, partnership.
Coalition is a great word. It's a very strong representation of what's happening here in this country. So I appreciate it. I think if we're going to be a news outlet, I think we got to make sure that we're using the terms that describe what it is that's actually happening in the world today. So thank you, MUBIN.
Go ahead. So I'll finish that just by saying that the whole thing about these investigations in Canada, they are happening, and people forget. I actually I made a comment. I was a witness on the standing committee on national security and public safety, whatever. I gave comments on the January 6th, the convoy occupation of Ottawa. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to, because these guys are such wannabe Americans. If I could just go on a little deviant here, like such wannabe Americans, and they're Trumpers. Yeah. Right, like putting the American flag on the Tomb of the Soldier in Ottawa, like these people, and so anyways, I don't want to go on the rant. I want to stick to the professional thing of.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome. Like it just so the agencies are taking it seriously. There are investigations underway, of course. There are going to be, especially when you have military people involved. So that will involve a whole other level of investigatory agencies, not just CSIS and the RCMP, okay, but the Department of National Defense agencies.
Like they're going through some of these institutions that we have with a fine-tooth comb to root out the radicalized people. There's going on right now in Canada.
Yeah, there's, and if you just think about, what the military is also facing in terms of the shakeup over sexual assault and, failure to investigate those sorts of things. An extra eye is going to be put on their attempts to investigate these things, and I think just like all militaries do generally, they want to deal with this stuff quietly. There are a bunch of people who have been given the talk, which is basically boils down to, look, either you're going to screw your career and it'll be over for you, or you get on board, you do what you got to do, and you have a career and you actually serve with honor. So it's being done quietly, but at the end of the day, I agree with you. As long as we have to start laying charges. When you mention hate crimes, for example, one of the barriers that I see in at the provincial level is, in order to lay such charges, you have to consult the Attorney General. And sometimes that's not, it's not required. I suggested that police managers, be given the authority to lay such charges, and so, make the process easier so that people realize that these are things that you can't do. But again, they're not being overly violent, and because they're very close to that line, there's not much that the government can do about it. If they're not breaking the law and they're not threatening the government and those sorts of things, they're going to continue getting away with what they're doing.
You think you think that we're going to get a hearing, a J6 style hearing about the convoy, like a public one? Because fuck, I got a boner for that. Like I really do, especially after watching the January 6th stuff, which I want to get to in just a second. Don't you think that would be beneficial to Canada and Canadians to be able to kind of see underneath the hood of what's going on?
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could do it theoretically, I think, but it's just it's the the politicking, and I just want people to see through the costumes that politicians wear to convince you that they represent you, or they know what they're talking about. It's theater. There's so much theater. It makes me sick. Where if you watch, I'm still a nerd in one sense of, I'll watch the Supreme Court hearings, on when they're on at like 1:45 a.m. Okay, just to see how we approach these things, and when you see even like the House of Commons and question period and the way that the politicians act like children, I have kids, and I'm just like, it's ridiculous. People need to just kind of smarten up and see what's being fed to them. I'm trying to be very diplomatic because I don't want to go into the partisan stuff. But if we are going to have a hearing like that where we can go through, okay, who was there, who was supporting these groups, who was giving them cover, political cover in the media, are we ready for that kind of conversation?
Fucking rights we are. Dude, I am so ready for it. Lynn, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
That's okay.
I think it's the dishonesty. Like, okay, sell your product, but don't bullshit me. Like, don't lie. Don't lie. Like, either I think you're a sociopath, you know, you're just doing it because you're malevolent, or you know what you're doing and you somehow, you know, I don't know, drink your guilt away. But they must know when they're saying things that are blatant lies that this is a blatant lie and whatever.
Strategy.
Yeah, it works. That's the thing. That's the problem. And we platform it. We allow it. We you know, we give it such respect, and it's like, oh yes, oh, what did so and so say about this topic? Oh yes, let's uncritically amplify the view and not like fact check these people. Like, isn't that what journalism is about? I don't know.
Yeah, it is supposed to be. Sorry, Linz, go ahead. You want to say?
No, I was going to agree with Mubin. A lot of people don't realize what the House of Commons is, and it's literally a place for backbenchers to make a voice for themselves on TV. It's always been that way. If it's theatrics is the perfect label for it, because you're getting people that are there that aren't getting enough airtime in whatever platform that they have, and they're trying to make a soundbite for themselves. So he's right. And when it comes to the January 6th, the hearing is great. I understand, like, the evidence is really good for us to see, but even as much as I love Liz Cheney for what she's, you know, doing, I think she can be kind of theatrical as well, and so can all of the people that are presenting that. It seems like a very staged performance. It's almost like when you're watching a court, like when you watch lawyers in court, it's the same thing. But if you can get past that and you can put the partisan politics aside and just watch it for the evidence, it's damning shit. And we need that here. We need to be able to see why the Emergencies Act was invoked. And we need to be able to say, see, this is why. This is why. Yes, we couldn't tell you about it back then because we were still investigating things, and you can't jeopardize the investigation just because somebody's angry that you did something.
Yeah, it's settled.
This is why we did it. Yeah.
It settles shit in the minds of people who are like seriously fucking confused and frustrated. Like, this is not the Canada we recognize, right? Are you watching the J6 stuff? Have you been watching some of the hearings? Have you watching this?
Yeah.
Dude.
Hell yeah.
You do work for the CIA, FBI.
No
you
comment.
Do work like you work with these guys. Do you talk to anybody that is currently in service in the United States in some of these institutions? And like, you talk to Secret Service guys, because one of your tweets, which was fucking hilarious, I don't know if it's even that funny, following this whole Secret Service and the text disappeared message from January 6th, this solid thread right here. It's a great thread by Paul Rosenweg. Not a political post. You do a great job of making sure people know that you're not political. I'm doing this from the angle of national security and the serious concerns with that which among most elite agencies of the United States government. As someone that works with these guys, these military organizations and paramilitary, paragovernment organizations, what are they saying? Like, you know, and what's going on with these texts and deleted texts from the Secret Service? Like, how bad is this? Help us understand it.
Oh my God. I have to be really careful. Obviously, I don't. That's why I have all those, as many caveats as I can shove in that tweet. To make it very clear that, because there is unfortunately a lot of partisanship when it comes to this stuff. And maybe this is just a reality of, you know, capitalist democratic politics. So I leave it at that. And I have to also remember my place. I'm Canadian. I'm not American. I don't have people will take it the wrong way, even if you just chime in, because they might be sympathizers and it's a very easy thing for them to say, well, hey, you're not American, you know, it's none of your business, blah, 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 stay out of it. So I also come at this with that understanding, but I, just looking at it from, the idea that, the Secret Service and what they're supposed to be, have such partisan leanings. And maybe that's a natural environment, a consequence of the job. They're protecting the president. I mean, they're obviously, they need to like the guy, or, if they're professional enough, like, can they admit that, like, I really despise this guy, but listen, I will literally take a bullet for him. That's my job. I'm not talking to them at that level and asking them, where they're at, whatever. But what this shows is just it's clearly they're covering something up, right? Like, and because it some people have theorized on what the content of those messages might be. The best theory is they were saying goodbye to their families, because they thought that they were going to be overrun and killed. Pence did not get into that, Secret Service car. Why? What did he also think that those Secret Service agents were loyal to, and so on? So you're right. I mean, it's so damning, the evidence that's coming out. They're putting up like literally like fake electors. It's such B movie level villainy. Okay. Like, it's just like he legit thought that he was going to get away with just submitting a sheet of fake electors that just and it's like, yep, this is this, and it's like this is not even accurate at all. So a lot of shit's coming out, and I'll let it play its course, but I'm just, I just see it from that perspective of, wow, it shows a level of compromise. And this is the problem with partisan politics. And this is one of the reasons why we're seeing, even on the Canadian side, I see it actually in my professional interactions, where I can see people who are in, national security agencies, whatever, and they're highly partisan, right? Just anti-Trudeau. Mm-hmm. That's the fixation, right? And so it again comes back to that issue of our own domestic extremism, radicalization, the role of radicalization in the military, of the police, and so on, politicians, and so on.
There was an interesting interview, and again, I should have written it down, a couple of the people that were involved, but there was a conversation about history and attempts to overthrow legitimate votes and elections and things like that in the past. And there was a comparison between the attempt that Trump made, if I can say that, with January 6th and sort of past. And there was a conversation that revolved around the fact that there's the social media, the communication that we have now, that this might have been successful in a different time. Do you believe that?
I don't know. That's too theoretical. You're talking about the January 6th, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. Without being where we are with technology, with communication, with social media, with how the world is so wired, that attempt to overthrow an election or change the results of an election could have been successful 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago.
I don't know. Hard to say. I'm inclined to say I don't think so, because the systems that the U.S. has in place, I mean, are pretty robust. I mean, you can't really, even 40 years ago or whatever. I mean, now what's happening, it's I don't want to go into its details, but just showing you what level of, this is what that hyper partisan, it's the Trump cult, if I can call it. I mean, they've just gone to a whole other level. Like one of the, I don't know if she was Georgia official or Florida official, was criminally charged for like taking basically the hard drive of the electoral system, voting system there. So they're trying to do a lot of things. I mean, people are also forgetting at the U.S. level, certain Republicans in certain states are making voting even more difficult. Yeah. If you see how difficult it's been already, like literally they will prosecute you for trying to give water to people while they're waiting in line ridiculous amounts of time, whatever. So I want to just say that what we're seeing, we live in such a privileged society. We have so many freedoms up the wazoo and up the yin yang too. Contrary to what all these, people who live in this alternate reality of really, they believe their rights are being taken away, freedom, and it's like as if we've lost our freedom. And it's like, I hate to use this, I'm not trying to don't want to make it this an ad hominem, but it sounds like cattle, like they're like dumb cattle groans at the freedom, like they don't even realize the freedoms they have when they talk zombies. About they're like zombies. Exactly. They're exactly like zombies. So, anyways, I just, what you're seeing at the U.S. level is just so nefarious, and it really is breaking down, core democratic norms and functions.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, and it's here. It's not just in the United States. It's here. It's this slow bleed. It's been happening and coming into this country for some time, and that's why we had Rolling Thunder, which petered out pretty quick. That's why we had the
and the
losers.
the US DC convoys tried to do the same thing after the Ottawa convoy thing, because it was so amped up and pumped up worldwide, and then we get into foreign funding, and I don't know if I told you the story, just a personal thing about my PayPal account, but PayPal started to ask me, like, we want your fucking tax assessment form, ID documents, like birth certificate. Like, I saw the results of that because they started to crack down on that, right? All these transfers that were happening, and suddenly,
you saw it too.
Yeah, suddenly I had to give up like everything. I was like, what the hell? So
we had a hard time getting money
it's all part of the same North American ecosystem.
In Ukraine, they were handcuffing us to getting money to Ukraine to help out one of our buddies over there that's doing a bunch of like on the ground kind of stuff to help.
He was like trying to feed people that were living in bomb shelters for like months and months and months. Like and he's doing that work. And we raised a few $1,000s for him selling T-shirts at the shop, DeanBlundell.com. Check it out. There's some nice stuff there.
$5,000 US we raised.
$5,000 US is what we raised. So like closer to $7,000. And we had a hard time getting it in there. And it's not like it's fascinating because you come up against these things and you're like, well, this doesn't make any sense. Like, why are we going to be, and then all of a sudden the dribs and the drabs start to come out. Like one of the things that you put on your Twitter feed last week, which was like an older story, but it's so fucking relevant today, was the amplification of right-wing information. Just on Twitter alone, it was something like 167% to 43% right-wing angry bullshit lies that got amplified so much more by the algorithm than on the 43%. Now, we saw that happen in this country during the convoy, and we all know what happened with us and with me with the Give Send Go list. Seb Gorka, Mike Flynn, all these guys were hammering me on Twitter after it happened. And these things are not real things. Like, January 6th shouldn't have been a real thing, but they get the kind of gusto to be able to do J6 and be able to do stuff like the convoy by this like propped up bullshit on social media and rhetoric that just continues to come from different countries. And one, of course, embroiled in a war is Russia. This is a tweet that you put up this week. Canadian convoy protest was covered more by Russia today than any other foreign media outlet, with Fox News amplifying disinformation at large. Imagine my shock. Yeah. And the articles from Global Russia Today covered the freedom protest. We covered this actual article, I think, a week ago when it came out. But like, these things are not, my point is this, these things are not real unless bad actors, nefarious government assholes decide that they want it to be real, right? If you don't have an entire government full of these losers like you do in Russia, you still have people popping up in government positions in this country that are part of different parties and in different institutions, kind of getting back to what we talked about before, who not only amplify that stuff, they believe it. Like
they are such easy prey to disinformation actors, professional disinformation actors, like in Russia, the Internet Research Agency. It's literally a multi-floor building, like a call center, where you have people who manage bots and different accounts and are infiltrating like all different types of platforms. It's their full-time job. Like people, that's shift work that they do. It's just like a call center job. Mm-hmm. We don't do that stuff here, right? Because obviously we don't do that here. But what you're seeing is, it's not just Russia, it's China, you get Iran, sometimes between the three of them, all who are adversaries of ours, of course, but are not exactly completely friends with each other. So they might, Iran was doing attacks and was trying to attribute them to Russia, okay? Or China will do attacks and attribute them to Russia, or Russia will do. So it's so wild. It is so wild out in the cyber warfare domain. This is really what it comes down to. So I have a, big... angle on that. Like I work with a bunch of people doing stuff on that, and it's because it works.
Tell us more. Tell us all the stuff.
Well, I mean, what they used to call psyops, psychological operations, they now generally call military information operations and military information in support of operations, MISO, or sometimes they call it influence activities. Basically, where in a war zone you want to convince or persuade the host population or a group within that population to think and behave a certain way. So these things are known and deployed on a regular basis. Demilitarize it for a second. I mean, media companies or ad companies, that are selling whatever they know this as well. They know what kinds of things to use, what kinds of colors to use in the commercial, what kind of sounds, what kind of backgrounds. All this stuff is well documented, like how we do these things, how people think, how they can be moved to action. It's well documented for decades and decades. It's been weaponized for decades. You can even go back, especially again, using the easy reference of Trump, because Trump is, I mean, hand in hand with Russia, when his election was happening, or all these things were happening even at that time. We caught a bunch of things. For example, the so-called ISIS cyber caliphate that was kind of being pushed around or propped up as a boogeyman was actually a Russian outfit. Okay, there was a Muslim group that was purportedly a Muslim group in the U.S. That was calling on revolution and this and that and blah blah blah. That was also a Russian. The Russians also used Black Lives Matter and used that as a cover. And so this stuff has been going on for decades already. And so all the stuff that we're seeing now, when you say it's not real, it's people who have made it real for, again, people who are just consuming this stuff blindly, uncritically. And just one more point about algorithm amplification. This is something, it happens because all that shit is being put out, and it creates a volume. So whatever automated system is out there seeking patterns and this and that, it's immediately going to see that big pile of poo in that sphere, right? And it will then start to throw far right related stuff into your feeds and into whatever. ISIS was doing this during 2013 and 2017, where they were putting up so much volume that you would be just on World Cup Twitter feed and you would see an ISIS account linking to a beheading. So
yeah.
It's a template. It's an actual program that people deploy and weaponize.
Well, yeah, they know, because they know that the guys that are perpetrating this and that use it, they know that if they target a right-wing audience that's extremist, they're the ones that'll do something. They'll action it, right? The left side, the left has leftist extremists as well, but it's not as prominent as the right. But they know that it's effective, and they know that's why they used Muslims. We were programmed back in 2001 to hate anybody that had more skin pigment than a Mexican, because they're probably flying planes into buildings. They did this on purpose, so they know. Okay, let's capitalize on that fear, that weird feeling that brown people give these crazy white people. It works.
If you think about Facebook, just Facebook. All these companies that collect our data, and they sell that data to companies, which could be front companies for intelligence agencies, which usually are front companies. They take a lot of this data, and then they profile you basically wherever you fit in their ecosystem, and then they drip feed you whatever they know it's going to work, right? Just do it now when you go on Facebook. And just see the ads that come up, right? Yeah. Type it into your search bar or whatever, like I'm going fishing soon. And guess what kind of ads come into my Gmail, right? Fishing ads. So you can train the algorithm even yourself. And so that it sends you things that are, proper and legit. The secret to that, by the way, is if you're like me, I've gone down the rabbit hole of TikTok videos, Facebook Reels.
Yeah.
My kids told me to get a hobby, and so that's the hobby I have. Leave me alone. But I know how to train it, right? And so I get all the stuff that I want. It's good stuff. Repeatedly watch the videos, or like scroll up, scroll down, go back to the video. I like the dogs that click the buttons and basically speak the language. You guys follow that?
Mm-hmm.
Love that.
Yeah, shit. I've seen it. Yeah, and you know what? Don't react. Like, you're literally just giving away that information to somebody else. That makes them angry. Good. Now we know that's what's going to, because they don't care that you love something or you like something. They want you to be angry, because that
you're going to respond,
invokes a response.
Yeah. Dude, and I'll tell you something is that we're not dummies. We're not smart, but we're not dummies here at DeanBlundell.com. And I know exactly what to put in a headline to make people crazy, right? Like, I know exactly what to do. And our biggest months are when I'm taking that troll approach, that outrage baiting approach to the content. Now, I'll outrage bait those same people that we're talking about, the extremists, the losers, the racists, the assholes, The people that prop up hateful ideologies, specifically evangelical extremists, maybe my favorite people to troll. And it's amazing because I know when I'm on a great trolling heater, I've outraged the exact community. I've done it with the exact data points that I need. And the sad part is that it works the other way. And better people than me don't do that, right? And so this is allowed to be unfurled, this hatred and the bullshit. It only really works on one side because the other side is like, hey, we just don't think that that's the right thing to do. Like, we got to be able to sleep with ourselves at night, to the point where we had Brittle Star Stuart Reynolds on yesterday, and we had this conversation about, like, do we take part in that game or do we not? And my theory is, yeah, I'm going to take part in that game.
Yeah, of course.
I'm going to take part in that outrage baiting because no one else is doing it, and it's a fucking great little gap to occupy. And the thing that happens is the amplification of that messaging within the outrage works the exact same way as the amplification of the other outrage.
Yep. That's why the clickbait is so powerful and popular, right? People know you'll see there's very little engagement with whoever puts out the tweet, but they know that engagement is what, inflates that algorithmic response. So, weaponize it for your own purposes. This is a battle. It's a battle of ideas, right? The internet is a battle space. There's doctrine and there are tactics, and we have to fight the fight, right? Like, we have to push back against this stuff because ultimately, we do.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, do we have to get
what
in the
does it
gutter with
accomplish?
them? Like, no, it might not make you feel good, but it fucking works. Do we have to
You
get
know
in
what?
the gutter with them? Yes.
Gutter. I know. I get the lure of the gutter.
I love it
because it's like you're satiated because your ego has been satisfied. But moral high ground is a better place to put your snipers.
I'll think about it. I can't promise.
Yeah.
He still tries to keep it. He tries to keep that. He tries to keep that line
into a stoicism thought process.
When people say it's a whack-a-mole approach, especially in the counterterrorism context, what happens when you don't whack the moles? The moles take over. They destroy your garden. So we have to continue fighting. Otherwise, they take over the garden.
It's my pleasure. You're welcome, world. It's my pleasure.
A lot of people don't realize that the platform doesn't care, even though they do. Like, that sounds very nefarious. Right. These algorithms and this and that. They don't care. The only thing they care about is keeping you there, so that they can advertise to you and make money off the advertising. They don't care if you hate Justin Trudeau. No. They don't care if you hate Pierre. They don't care if you hate or love kittens and videos of dogs that touch buttons. They don't give a fuck. They just want you there. They don't care why you're there. You just need to stay there. And that's why. That's why everything comes from all the social media. Takes over everything. They try to. Oh, well, don't worry. You don't need to go on YouTube anymore. Just use ours here on Facebook. You don't have to use Twitter. We have this thing that's just like Twitter. That's why they do it. So, just as long as you're like Mubin said, if you know how to train it and you know how to recognize it, sure, enjoy it. Just don't fall for their shit. That's all.
I got the best steak videos off of those TikTok reels. Let me tell you.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Listen, look at what he does. Look at what he puts on every day. It's like a picture of his meat. He goes, like, this is the thing. Does this pick up, like, does the algorithm pick up your food? Like, because I don't think these get enough heat. Protein lunch posts. These two tomahawks are for me. Steaks for the teenagers who are awake. LOL. Every day you put something on here that makes me feel like an inferior griller, and it pisses me off. It legitimately bothers me. I'm like, why can't I fucking make food that looks like it tastes that good? Yeah,
it's good. That was really good.
Yeah, it looks like it.
The thing that I'm at, the point that I'm at, and if you guys have somehow convinced yourself you're doing God's work by fighting with people on fucking social media, then good for you.
No, not that. Yeah, no, not the shit posting and that sort of stuff on social media. That's a waste of time. Total waste of time.
Yeah.
No,
that's what Dean's talking about. Yeah. You somehow convinced Dean has somehow co-opted your strategy and made it his own. No, that's not what he does. That's not what that happens. Like, I watch you two losers fight with people on Twitter all day.
Still
I'm
love
just
it.
like, what are you doing? You guys are just you're wasting your
Whack-a-mole.
fucking time.
Dude,
Back
you
to
heard
the
what he
complaint
said.
that I
We're
got.
playing fucking
Oh, no.
whack-a-mole, and it's totally allowed in the world of espionage. And I feel like I'm a
He's
Yeah.
doing
spy.
Mubin is doing something different.
We've been
you guys are
deputized.
not playing whack-a-mole. You're fucking jumping into the pool and swimming around with these dickheads.
They're
That's
double.
all
They're
you're
double.
doing.
They're 000 licensed to shit post.
We're providing cover fire from the
That's
deck
right.
of the pool. He's in the
got
pool.
Yeah.
We've got the deck.
You just
Anyway,
gotta know, like I do value my time so much, and so I did this too. Look, I got into it with ISIS guys online for hours and hours and hours on end. Really, like I had no life, and I just realized at the end of the day, like you got to just be, firm with your timing. Give them like a limit of tweets that you will engage with them in, and just move on. Because that level of like, then you end up arguing with bots and people, and then it amplifies other bots, and then it brings people to your accounts, and it's just like no time
Then
for that,
your
man.
impressions go through the roof, and then you can sell your content at a higher CPM. Dude, I
You're
figured
right.
this shit out.
Look at my last tweet last night. I said, "Do we wonder why we do this?" And
Yeah.
it's because you know what? It pads our sales deck, folks. I love it. And then I always put the little cat toy gif up.
Well, because listen, you can do two things at once, Mubin. Lachlan, you can do two things at once in this society. If you're gonna
Well,
fight
some
and play
people-
whack-a-mole,
yeah, I
you
think
want to make
some-
money while you're doing it. That's it.
Yeah, spoken like a true capitalist, right on.
Why should they be the only ones getting the money and clicks,
And
Lachlan?
they do get a lot of ridiculous amounts
Right.
of money when you think about just with these convoy people, even in the U.S. Like you just make too much money or something. I don't know, but
Yeah.
you know,
Hey, did you see the cult church that they just put together in Ottawa?
I did. Yeah,
you see
yeah,
this?
of course.
What do you make of that? What do you make of that?
Well, it's
nondescript cult church?
it's their little attempt to make it's their own little church that they're
It's
gonna
convoy church, isn't it? It's a
Yeah.
fake trucker convoy
It's a
church.
tax haven. That's all it is.
That's all it is. Place to wash money. That's all.
do. Oh,
washing money.
they're gonna try that, are they?
Yeah.
Let's see. It's being
Yeah.
monitored closely, of course.
I think they've
well,
applied
yeah,
for
they'll be more
they've applied
interested.
for
Well,
non for profit apparently, and I don't know if
Government's
that's going to.
interested in where the funds for that came from. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
When you say
Yeah,
it's being
I would be
monitored,
too.
do you know it's being monitored? Tell me more. Tell me what you know. Come
well,
on.
I'm just saying on a balance of probabilities, it's being monitored. How about that?
Listen, dude, we'll let you go, but really appreciate you just jumping in today. I'll
Yeah.
let you get back to your Zoom meeting deradicalization
No, it's over.
processes. Oh, is it?
Work
Okay.
on it for the rest of the country,
Yeah,
please.
work on it for these idiots up here if you can.
All right. All right.
We need you,
So-
dude. This is
Yeah,
this is
I'm here.
this is money time for you. This is where you make your cheddar, where you you tell people how it fucking really is. And I'm on Team MUBIN SHaikh. Let me be like you and I will partner on it. Our own de-radicalization program where you
Okay.
can write it, and I'll just go and stand on the street corner and yell at people.
All right, with the little model of kids who can't de-radicalize good. All
Thanks,
right.
buddy. Great to talk
Cheers,
to you.
everyone. Cheers, bye.
Cheers.
Thanks,
Thank you,
man.
brother.
MUBIN SHaikh, Mr. MUBIN SHaikh, counterterrorism expert.
Great dude.
Great guy. Yeah.
Amazing.
he knows-
I actually caught him.
I
I caught him on a
enjoy him.
podcast yesterday that I didn't even know he was a part of. Was that White Hot Hate that CBC had put out when they were gone undercover in? They actually interviewed Mubin on that. It was really good.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's
Yeah.
fun to, and you know what I like about him is that he and I talk on Twitter a little bit from time to time in regards to because I'm, as you know, not a huge fan of religion.
Really?
Yeah, organized any kind of
It's
religion.
come up. Occasionally,
fan.
we touch on it here on this podcast.
I didn't
Yeah.
think it was him though. I thought it was somebody else that said it.
No, yeah, it gets attributed to all kinds of people, but generally speaking, I'm anti-religion, anti-organized religion, and super anti-cult, really anti-cult, very, very much so. They're all cults. Yeah, exactly. They're all cults. Which
Lachlan
is
actually said it. I'm proud of you, Lachlan.
way to go, buddy. Oh, he knows it too. He just can't say it out loud on the radio in Alberta.
No, I've told you guys before. I have an appreciation for and a respect for somebody who has a belief structure. I believe that people need something to believe in. Faith, they need something. Okay?
Themselves.
They need something. And if it's themselves, then fine. I truly believe that. And I know very little, less than very little about religion. So I always feel very hypocritical making comments that Dean grew up in it. Dean knows way more about religion and has a position of
apostate.
Has that to actually stand on.
His prostate is enlarged?
Yes, to comment. I, on the other hand, feel like a hypocrite if I am denouncing or making anti-religious comments because I know nothing about it.
Our next guest does, and he's standing by. He's been on with James DeFiore, Blackballed the podcast, many times. He is a whistleblower at the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. If you remember, kicked up a little heat over the past couple of months because of the David Wallace interview, of course, Klondike Papers, et cetera, et cetera. Please welcome to the program for the first time. Really excited to have this gentleman on, Mr. Richard Marsh, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see you, Richard. Good to see you.
Nice to see you, Dean.
Nice to see you. By the way, you look smashing in green. Just want to let you know.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it's the first time anyone's told me that.
Yeah, really brings out the blue in your eyes.
Can you tell my wife?
How are you, sir? Yeah?
I'm good. Yeah.
Coming to us from somewhere in Canada, obviously. And Richard, if you haven't been following, Richard is and has been, I think, since 2015, if I'm not mistaken, Richard. A whistleblower in reference to the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, which is very newsworthy now and largely considered by myself and several other people to be a very dangerous sect. And when I say several other people, I mean like everyone. Now you're out of the church. If you've been following Richard's story, was the author of these Klondike Papers, one of the people that was helping with put these things together with David Wallace. We've had him on. And I wanted to have you on today on the back end of talking to MUBIN SHaikh to talk about extremism and cults, because you were in one. I believe I was in one in the evangelical church when I was younger. So, you know, having said that, I mean, it's caused significant issues, familial issues for me. If you follow Richard's story, Richard, significant familial issues for you as well. And the reason why I wanted to talk to you today was because we haven't talked to you yet, and we're in it. Like, we're in the midst of your story being very important to the public consciousness. But what is, if you could, Richard, real quick, if you could explain what the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church is, and then we can kind of get started and kind of, you know, figure out where to go from there.
Okay, well, it originated as a fairly conventional Protestant sect that split off from the Anglican Church in the UK and Ireland in the 1830s, and it continued without too much controversy until the 1960s. They always had this kind of separatist vibe. They always thought they were the best. You know, they were the church, and other denominations were inferior. But in the 1960s, a leader took over, a guy called James Taylor Jr., who radicalized the whole thing and essentially turned it into a personality cult centered on himself. He claimed to be, you know, the only divine communication conduit from God. Everyone has to listen to me. If you want to get to heaven, hang on to my shirt tails. Highly controversial guy, highly charismatic and funny, but also corrupt. Was caught in bed with another brother's wife and used to get very drunk and make a lot of crude jokes. The effect of that sex scandal in 1970 was to split the movement in half. Everyone who had a little common sense got out at that point, which it was kind of like a brain drain. All the rebellious and the intelligent and the perceptive and the critical thinkers got themselves out, and it left this rather sort of docile remnant. And it's a very closed church. You can't marry outside the church. Contraception is banned, so everyone has lots of children. So essentially, since 1970, it's kind of been a captive breeding program. and the numbers globally now are 55,000 people. So from James Taylor 1970 up till about 2000, it was a kind of a high control cult where the leaders, James Taylor's successors, got very wealthy on donations from the flock, but presumably got off on the kind of power and control they had. But in 2000, Bruce Hales, the current leader, took over and he commercialized the whole thing. So it's now a commercial cult, again with himself as the center and the divine conduit of authority, but also the members are expected to work ridiculously long hours and to be ridiculously successful. And every time one of them builds up a successful business, it's essentially taken over by the cult and carbon copied in all the different countries that the cult operates in. So it's now far more about money than it is about God. And it works very well from a financial perspective of the leadership.
So James DiFiore joins us as well. You've been working with James in kind of uncovering some of this stuff, obviously, where it comes to Canada, which is why I wanted to talk to you about not just about your involvement in the church, which is, a cult. It's not a church. We all know that. I know that. Everybody knows that. Every government agency knows that this is a sect and a cult, not a church, even though they try to pretend to be one. But there was a concerted effort in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken, to move from it being non-political into influencing politics. And that decision was made, I'm not too sure by who, but there were, the reading that I've done, and correct me if I'm wrong, they were apolitical. The Plymouth Brethren Christian Church was apolitical up to a certain point, and then there was this effort to get into politics or influence politics with money. Does that kind of go hand in hand with the commercialization of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, or was, the effort to get into political influence before the idea that you wanted to create some kind of commercial cult?
No, this was all the work of one man. This is the work of Bruce Hales, the current leader. His father didn't pass away till around 2000, but Bruce Hales practically took over in 1995, as he has boasted about himself. As his father got more feeble, Bruce kind of blocked access to him, controlled the information flow, and took over behind the scenes, so that when his father passed, the succession kind of handed on to him pretty much seamlessly. And he is the mastermind behind the political and the commercial reconstruction of the church.
Okay, so yeah, it's they go together, but it all started with Bruce Hales. Now, how did you get into? Because you need to be born into the Plymouth Brethren Church to be a Brethren, right? Is that correct?
Technically, I mean, there are a few people who've joined. More so back in history, like 40, 50 years ago, there would have been a proportion who joined, but 99% of the current members were born into it, and many are fifth, sixth generation. So yes, I was born into it.
What's going to church like in the Plymouth Brethren Church? Like, how does?
It's repetitive.
Happens a lot.
It's Catholicism.
You go every day. You go every day, church every day, and 5 times on Sundays. And nominally, it's Bible readings. You discuss the Bible and preachings, and nominally it's fairly conventional. But in fact, they spend most of their time talking about their culty ideas and Bruce Hales and how wonderful he is, and very little time actually talking about the Bible and God. So in reality, the Christian aspect is a pretty thin veneer over a personality commercial cult centered on Bruce Hales.
Okay, so my understanding is that you're a whistleblower, which means you've been front and center for some things that the PBCC has done. The NIH $2 billion PPE scam in England. I think that you had something to do with that, if I'm not mistaken. Something that you brought to people's attention, or a group of you.
The credit for that actually belongs to some others. I did bring to attention an earlier scam on the National Health Service, which I'm a little legally gagged to go into details on that. But yeah, a number of commercial frauds that predated the actual COVID pandemic scam I was involved in bringing to the attention of the public.
And there's been several. I mean, it's
there's plenty.
Which I want to get to. But like, what I want to first find out, why'd you leave? Like, what made you leave the church? Like, because everybody, if you haven't been in a dedicated religion, a familial dedicated religion like evangelical Christianity, or which I think is a cult. But Richard, if you haven't been into one of these dedicated religious cults, sects, groups, the familial part of this is very difficult for people, right? Like it is one of the things that if you're excommunicado or if you're apostate, it does incredible damage to your family if your entire family's involved in this. So it's obviously not something you took lightly, and it's a chosen road by yourself to separate yourself from something that you've probably found a lot of refuge in. But what was it that a light went off, or what was it over time, or was it a thing? How did you decide, hey, listen, this is craziness, this is a cult, and I can't be involved in it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I truly believed in it. I believed in all the miracles and the metaphysical stuff, and yes, if you leave the church, you won't go to heaven, and you'll go to hell, and you'll roast in fire. That's really one of the main things that keeps people inside there. They really think their eternal, never-dying soul is going to roast in hell for eternity unless they are faithful to Bruce David Hale's overweight Sydney businessman. And that seems incredible to believe, but again, it comes down to you're born in this, it's brainwashed into you every single day of your life, and you really believe it. And you really are terrified to leave. But I also studied the Bible a lot. I was a curious in the sense of having an interest in trying to understand how it all worked. And a number of things happened that just I couldn't reconcile what the Brethren were and what they were doing with any form of Christianity or any form of common decency. They treated me exceptionally cruelly on occasion, but the last straw was discovering these commercial frauds that they were perpetrating. And when I reported on those frauds, it was a case of shoot the messenger. I mean, if they had been decent human beings, let alone Christians, they would have been horrified at what I was pointing out and would have taken very strong action against the perpetrators. But no, they took the strong action against me, blamed me for reporting the fraud to the authorities, and then made me a kind of a scapegoat. So I knew at that point, my belief, my faith, if you want to call it that, in the whole system just evaporated. And once you no longer believe in the system, it's almost intolerable to remain in there. To listen to all that bullshit every day and to pretend and live a lie that you're a good exclusive or Plymouth brother, when in fact the whole thing is lies and smoke and mirrors, is intolerable. So I took myself out, but they would have kicked me out if I hadn't, because I'd seen through them.
It might be worth pointing out also that they deprive the members of certain media. And if you guys would have had HBO, you would have known that giving stuffed envelopes of cash to your leader was just like The Sopranos. So maybe a couple of you guys would have escaped a little bit quicker. I don't know if you know that yet or not, but that is like
I don't know what HBO or The Sopranos are, but I'll take your word for it, James.
See?
Oh, you were abused. You weren't allowed to watch The Sopranos. That's absolute abuse. That's like that's seminal watching for the world. I mean, Jesus.
One of my favorite things about getting to know Richard over the last few months is that I've noticed how many of my jokes are centered around pop references, and he never gets any of them because he's never seen any of the things that I reference.
Are you? But this is what people understand. Like the evangelicals, they don't want you mixing in the secular world. They don't want you influenced by the secular world. They don't want you watching secular TV shows. They don't want you listening to secular music. And this word is like of the world, secular meaning of the devil. It's got nothing to do with your, religion and your training and your apologetics and the policies of the church. And not a lot of people understand why, right? And the reason why is because it's not to save you. They say it's because, hey, listen, if you mix with that stuff, you could go astray, right? If you listen to U2 or Bob Marley, you could go sideways. And we want to keep you holy. We want to keep you firmly ensconced in the beliefs of this church. And what you said to me rang such a bell, Richard. The fear that evangelicals, and this is an evangelical sect, the fear that evangelicals inject into the afterlife by saying, and it was like drilled into me at youth group, it was drilled into us at church. They would spend an hour painting a picture of how painful it is to live in hell for eternity, like weeping, gnashing of teeth. That sound familiar? Burning, and when you grow up in that, you're like, oh, fuck, it's got to be real. And that sounds terrible. Who wants that, right? Like nobody wants that. But when you get out of it, you look back on it and you go, holy fuck, what was I thinking? Like, how am I, like, none of these people have any empirical proof that the afterlife exists, yet they've monetized it, and they use it to literally force people to live in fear. And it's not just that church, it's the evangelical church in general. But the more you get into the fundamentalism or the orthodoxy and the different sects of people that believe in the fundamentalism of that perspective and of that ideology, the more fucking intense it gets. Like, the more crazy and outlandish and dramatic all the guilt gets, does it not? And it's like, if you haven't grown up in it, you live that fear. You literally live the fear. And then, when you wake up as a human being, you're like, this can't be right. Was there an embarrassment there, or is there an embarrassment there for you that you lived it and you believed it?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, it's, as you say, it's hard to explain to people. And I mean, in some way, the whole kind of Donald Trump QAnon fiasco that happened relatively recently helps me to explain to people how intelligent people can be sucked in by something that has no proof and no credibility to it. And I say to them, well, look, millions of intelligent people believe that Trump won the last election. And that's just through exposure to social media. I was born into this and I had this rammed down my throat every day of my life. That's why I believed it. So that's how I try and illustrate to people, how it can be that intelligent people can believe this stuff.
So, okay, let's fast forward. You're out. You get out of the cult. They steal your family, correct?
Yeah.
Family's still in it. Wife, kids still in it.
Yeah.
Do you talk to them? What's that like?
No, I don't have any communication.
Is it hard?
Yes. Yeah, of course it is. Yeah. I mean, occasionally I see a photo of them. I'll see their faces on LinkedIn. Someone sent me some pictures today through DBS means of what they look like now. But it's very hard, but there's nothing you can do about it. And if I attempted to contact them, it would put them in an impossible position, because if they were to respond to me or continue contact and it was found out, then they would be given the same treatment that I had. So it's out of a kindness and consideration for them that I don't even attempt to contact them. If they want to contact me, I'm sure they could find me. But
that's heartbreaking.
I'm not gonna make it
that's the most
hard.
heartbreaking part of your story since I've met you. Is that.
And it's the story of every single person who's left that church over the last 70 years.
What do they do?
What do they?
What do they do in terms of excommunicating you? What's that process like to go and take your family away from you? Because this is like there are hundreds, if not thousands, of stories like yours.
Yes, exactly. Well, I mean, it isn't. You're hardly. I just left, so I didn't actually sit down in a formal meeting and witness my own execution. I mean, it'd be like going to your own burial, essentially. But I've seen other people excommunicated, and they have a special meeting and they have a prayer and they sing a hymn and someone speaks up and states the crimes and then they say, we have to withdraw from our brother because he's unclean and so on and so forth. And then the person excommunicated is expected to get up and walk out. And then they all say amen. Everyone has to say amen. And that concludes the matter. The person is now officially dead.
But how do they convince your family to not follow you? Like, did you and your wife have those conversations? Like, hey, listen, we can't be in this. And if so, what was that process like?
No, not really, because my wife and my children were already very upset with me because I was showing the signs of apostasy for years before I actually left. And that was a big embarrassment to them. I'd stopped going to church regularly. And they had lost privileges as a result of my being under a cloud, is their kind of euphemism for people who are having doubts. And so I think, while it was painful for them when I left, there was a certain relief in it because it was, they could see it was inevitable. Mm-hmm. Sitting on the fence is very uncomfortable. And of course, this is probably the thing that hurts me most, is I was complicit in brainwashing those 5 children through the whole of their lives to stay in this thing. Mm-hmm. And evidently I did so quite successfully.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's got to be crazy guilt there. It's funny because I talk to my folks; they're not really evangelical. Don't identify as it. They've since moved away from some of the those aspects of it. And I've had a conversation with my folks where they're like, "Oh, sorry," and because it's literally like if you were to ask me what the hardest part of my life was, it was dealing with how to turn that belief system over, right? Like how to legitimately remove yourself from that and how to open up because if you haven't done it, it's like a mind fuck. It's so difficult for people that have literally been involved in man-made religion, organized religion that needs fealty to an individual, needs financial fealty, is closed off, is not inclusive. You get outside of that and you're like, oh my God, now I've got a decision to make. Like, how do I, because there's a ton of fear for a lot of people, right? Especially when you're living on this planet and you have a guarantee according to your church or the doctrine system that you've employed or belief system that you're going to live forever. Right. Like, and this sounds crazy to people, but there's a comfort in a belief system that tells you it doesn't matter what happens on this earth. When you're done, you go to heaven to sing with the angels, to sit at the right hand of God, and we are the chosen people. Like you were told you're the chosen people, and you're tied into Israel, and you're tied into those chosen people. And it's this exclusive club that you sit around and you go, well, fuck, I don't have to do any critical thinking, and I get to go to heaven, and I don't have to worry about dying because it doesn't matter. That sounds incredible, but it's so unrealistically stupid according to the laws of nature that when you're out of it, there's the embarrassment that you could have been involved in a cognitively delayed move with a whole bunch of other people who are weak enough to believe the same thing that you believed. And then there's the damage that you did along the way by being part of this exclusive, not inclusive group. And then there's the stuff that you forced on your kids. And then there's the familial relationships, which you have to walk away from. Like when I talk to you and I look at you, I get these like ruminations of how I grew up, and obviously not in the same way you did. These ruminations of how I grew up and the embarrassment that I carry around with me as a result of it, and the anger that I now have and the pulpit that I have to push back against it. Like it's never been more important to me, but it's very different for me than it is for you, because you literally have been hunted by these guys, which is why we've started to talk to you, and the work that James has been doing with you and the work that you've been doing on your own is getting that story out. Like they just didn't leave you alone. they hunted you to the point where David Wallace came to find you and had to report back to this church because they wanted you. For what?
Yeah, exactly. And again, that is the experience of a great number of church leavers. I mean, they have a policy of hunting people down. If you were to leave and you didn't cause them any trouble and you never criticized them and you kept your mouth shut, yeah, they'd probably leave you alone. But anyone who speaks out on social media, or anyone who shows some sign of being a success in the outside world, they're out to ruin you. And the reason is that you're taught inside the church that if you leave, you know, not only will you lose your soul salvation, you will also be a miserable failure. You won't fit into the world. You'll be exploited. You'll end up in the gutter. You'll end up dead, basically. So anyone who leaves and actually makes a success, that kind of proves that they've been lying. And what they're concerned about is that people inside the church will see someone who leaves and they seem to be happy, they seem to be making a go of things. They fear that'll have a very subversive influence. So they actively try to ruin you when you leave. If you leave with a business, they'll try and ruin your business. If you leave with your family, they'll try and cause division in your family. It's an active malice. It's not just a passive observation.
Yeah, it's an effort. It's an effort that they made. And in your case, how long have they been looking for you, and to what extent? Like, you know, when you talk about people coming for you because you're a whistleblower, which, you know, is well documented, what is that like? Take me through that experience.
Well, at first I wasn't particularly conscious of it because inside the church they don't talk much about their illegal activities. So I wasn't really anticipating the kind of things that happen. I mean, the first thing that happened was a computer hack. I'd worked for this Brethren company, this one that was perpetrating this fraud, for 3 months. And probably 2 or 3 months after I left, my computer had this kind of blue screen of death. Couldn't get onto it. Took it to a computer repair guy who went through it. He said he'd never seen anything like it, but he did manage to recover most of the stuff on it. And the glaring clue was that the only thing he couldn't recover was exactly 3 months of emails, which were the emails that I would, when I was working for this company. So they went in there and they deleted every single email that was in my inbox or outbox while I was working for this fraudulent business. That was the first I became aware of the surveillance. Though I'm pretty sure they would have had private investigators keeping an eye on me even at that stage, although I wasn't looking out for it, so I didn't know. But yeah, I mean, right from then, which was a few months after I left, right to the present day, yeah, I'm looking over my shoulder.
When you say looking over your shoulder, is it because, you know, according to David Wallace, they sent him to find you and told him to hold you? Is his account of it correct? That he brought on our show, where he said, "Hey, listen, they told me to find this guy Richard Marsh, and through intermediaries, and I went and found him, and they told me to sit here and wait because they were going to send a team." Is that an accurate story?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, David. Firstly, we've got all the emails, hundreds of emails between the Brethren and David Wallace and Nathan Jacobson. And you can see the kind of progression of events leading up to that. And then David Wallace, the first I heard of David Wallace was that he phoned a friend of mine, Dr. Kirat Singh in Edmonton, who was the only person he could find that might actually have contact with me. And he kind of pours out this long warning: tell your friend Richard to get out of Ontario. These guys are fanning out to find him. And it was a very sincere kind of cry from the heart. He was really worried that he was going to get a murder rap because he thought the Brethren were going to kill me off. So yeah, that is an entirely accurate story.
Were they trying to kill you?
I don't know whether they were intending to kill me or whether they were intending to rough me up and intimidate me. But we do know that they are quite open to hiring street thugs and bounty hunters to make their feelings known on occasion. We've got emails showing that as well, also in the Klondike Papers.
It's worth noting that the person that was sort of the intermediary between the Brethren and David Wallace in order to find and hunt down Richard Marsh was Stephen Harper's former attorney, Gerald Chipper. I think that's an important aspect of this story, just because it is not every day you find out that your former prime minister has the same attorney as a crazy fucking Christian cult. You know, it's just not real.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something that's
I mean, and Chipper has been involved in efforts to hunt down ex-Brethren right back to 2006. We've got emails, we've got email proof of him working with private investigators to hunt down a previous apostate or escapee who actually set up the first website to be dedicated to criticizing the Plymouth Brethren Church. And Chipper was hunting him down with private investigators in 2006.
That would have been while he was the general counsel for the Conservative Party of Canada.
Probably would, yeah. And he's been involved in a whole lot of Brethren court cases since. I mean, he's basically their counsel, their representative. A whole bunch of child custody cases, because when someone leaves the church, often it's the case that there's a child custody dispute between the parent who's left and the parent who remains, and of course the church financed the remaining parent to very, very high levels to get the very best lawyers to try and retain custody of the children for the church. And Chipper's been their lawyer of choice in these in Canada for the past 15, 20 years.
Okay, so now take me through the Stephen Harper, Pierre Poilievre connection, because if what you're saying is true and documented, that Gerald Chipper is counsel for, or has acted as counsel for, this church. Air quotes, church, like that. I don't even call it a church. Counsel for this church. The receipts that James has put into a blog post of, which I found fascinating, of, when he first took the oath, or first or second, James, when he first took the oath.
2006.
2006, when he became the prime minister. Everybody knows that Stephen Harper is an evangelical, member of the Christian and Missionary Alliance Church. That my brother was a reverend in the Christian and Missionary Alliance Church. It was the choice of my family when I grew up. Wackadoo, wackadoo. I can tell you that 100%. Just pure crazy. And so he's a member of that church and has been devout, but very quiet. He presents himself as centrist. There's a great article in the Tyee that's making his way around now, which kind of, explains his religious background, but he presents himself as centrist. But during his, if I'm not mistaken, the first time he took the oath as the Prime Minister of Canada, there were a bunch of guys front and center sitting in the front seat from the Plymouth Brethren Church, and he took the oath on a Plymouth Brethren Bible. Is that accurate? And if so, if that example is accurate, what is the extent of the Plymouth Brethren Church's involvement that you know about with the Conservative Party in this country, or in politics, seemingly with the Conservative Party in this country?
Yeah, well, you're kind of mixing up two different occasions there. When he took the oath on the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church Bible, that was when he first became Prime Minister. And the background that I know there is that just preceding that election, when I think it was Martin was defeated and Harper became the PM, there was a very big dispute, public controversy over same-sex marriage, and the Brethren weighed into that very heavily. I was in the Brethren in Regina, Saskatchewan at the time, and there was a kind of one of the local elders was in charge of managing that campaign for the city of Regina, and the same would have happened in every Brethren congregation across the country. And we were given kind of guidelines, and we all had to write letters to members of parliament, and then they will all be faxed every evening. We would take all our letters along, and they would all be faxed to members of parliament.
Just you say faxed? You're faxing
faxed,
stuff?
Yeah, faxed. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, archaic word, I know.
Yeah.
And it caused quite a stir, because I mean, some members of parliament literally received about 10,000 letters, and of course they all had this stereotypical cult language, so it was obvious it was an organized campaign. And then it hit the national press, and then it turned out that the kind of campaign headquarters was a 7-Eleven in Toronto or something, and eventually some member of the Brethren came forward and admitted that yes, it was an organized campaign, but it was just concerned parents. No admission that this was a cult campaign run from Sydney, Australia, as it was. It was highly centrally organized. Anyway, following that, there was the election. Harper wins, and then a few days after Harper won, or when he came to be sworn in, I went to church in the evening, as I always did, as a family we always did, and the kind of political organizer guy, this elder in the church, called me over after the church meeting. His house was next door to the meeting room, and he takes me into his office, which is where he had run the kind of anti-gay marriage campaign from. And there on his desk was a big glossy letter-sized photo of Stephen Harper being sworn in, just sort of head down to the waist and showing the Bible he was holding. And before he even told me, it was obvious to me it was one of our own Bibles, Plymouth Brethren Christian Church Bible, J.N. Darby translation.
Is that it? Is that the picture you're talking about?
That's the picture. Yeah, except
and that's
it was
the Bible?
kind of, it was portrait format, and it just showed Harper and the Bible in his hand. So it's kind of like the left half of that image. And he said to me, look, he said, Stephen Harper used the Bible we gave him to be sworn in on as Prime Minister. And he'd got a FedEx envelope there, and he just wanted to show me this photo because he was FedExing it straight off to Bruce Hales in Sydney. So, I was very impressed at the time. I mean, this kind of confirmed all the rumors that we had heard that the Brethren actually had huge influence with Stephen Harper. And then I kind of forgot about it until relatively recently, when all this came up again, and managed to get a copy, not a very good copy, of the photo. And sure enough,
So that's
the other occasion.
Go ahead.
Again.
No, go ahead.
The other occasion you were talking about was the next election. Was that 2011, James? Yeah, 2011. Now this was an interesting story. I was contacted by an ex-Brethren member from Alberta after I had been on James's show. He'd seen the show, and he wanted to talk to me. And he said that he was watching Stephen Harper's victory speech live on television in 2011. And when Stephen Harper finished his speech, he walks over to the edge of the platform and shakes hands with four men sitting there in a row, and he recognized them as leading members of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. And in fact,
these
there
guys?
were five.
These
Guys. In fact, there were five of them. And apparently, Stephen Harper walks to the edge of the platform and bends over, and these five guys stand up, and he shakes hands with each of them in turn, starting with Chuck Truen. And then he walks back to the podium, and then his wife and the kids come on, and the ceremony ends. Now he wrote an email, which he's forwarded to me, to CBC, saying, do you realize that these guys that Stephen Harper's shaking hands with at minute 22 point whatever of your video are actually exclusive Brethren, Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, as they're now called. And the first guy that he shook hands with after his victory speech is not only a Plymouth Brethren political organizer, but he's also not even a Canadian citizen. He's an American citizen out of Detroit. So this guy doesn't want to be named, this ex-Brethren member who sent this email. He sent this to CBC, and when he looked at the video again, he found that little segment where Stephen Harper shakes hands with these guys had been clipped out. And in fact, if you look at the video now online, you can see Stephen Harper walking towards that edge of the stage. And then it cuts to Loreen and Harper's children walking in. And then when it cuts back to Stephen Harper, he's walking back towards the podium. And so the little section of 5 or 10 second segment where the camera was zoomed in on him shaking hands with the Brethren guys has been cut out.
It's been edited?
Yeah, it's been edited out. Yeah.
That's one of those details that could be completely innocuous. But it's also interesting to point out that was around the time that Stephen Harper put all of his supporters or allies, I guess you would say, onto the board of directors at the CBC. It was right around the same time. So
was it really?
Yeah. That's why really hardcore lefties to this day is like CBC is a conservative network. You know, it's got a bunch of Harper appointees and stuff. And it's like, it's not really true. But then you look at something like that and you're like, well, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, that's why this story is so crazy, because
I know
if you look at it if you just look at it like, okay, Stephen Harper swore his oath on a cult Bible. His lawyer is the cult's lawyer. You know, the front row of his 2011 inauguration was
cult guys,
members, you know, cult. And it's just, you know, and everyone in all the media in Canada is just like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. So
well, I think there's a fear to deal with this. Like, you know, the mainstream aspect of this is because it's like, you know, been undercover for a long period of time, right? Like, there's one thing that evangelicals and specific fundamental sects don't want you to know is what they believe, right? And that's why they hide. That's why they put fences around their churches. That's why they don't talk to media. That's why they don't allow secular influence, music, TV shows. That's why they buck against objective reality in the life that we live, is because part of it is like, it's so embarrassing for these people, and it's so fucking outlandish to think that these ideologies, that a human being with the ability to reason would believe in any of them, that they're embarrassed by it. Times that by 1,000 when you're running for office, right? Which is what makes me fearful about the Stephen Harper, Pierre Poilievre tandem, right? Like, I don't know where they fit in the hierarchy. I don't know what they talk about in the Plymouth Brethren Church, or back then, what they talked about in terms of infiltrating or subterfuge of political parties. But obviously, this group of people at the Plymouth Brethren Church have targeted conservatives, specifically religious conservatives, to be able to do their bidding, right? But how does the Plymouth Brethren Church's arms, or, you know, para-religious organizations, how do they fit in and support this conservative party? And the other part is like, you know, is Pierre Poilievre involved in this? If you know that, you know, that Stephen Harper is very close to these guys. Yesterday, Stephen Harper came out and he's like, I'm endorsing Pierre Poilievre, which has never happened in a leadership race, like, ever in this country. I'm supporting Pierre Poilievre because he's getting a lot of the cult hate now, and people are holding him up as a religious wacko, which he is. But like, are they involved in this, and how? Like, how has this been able to kind of germinate? And why are they using, specifically, why are our politicians using, you know, church resources, and why are they in bed with these guys, and how?
Money. I mean, the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church is extremely wealthy, very, very, very wealthy, and that's the simple one-word answer. They provide the funding. Now, whether they provide it directly to the parties through members donating, I mean, that's one way they do it. The other way they do it is by supporting PACs that are advertising. They will actually put manpower on the street to deliver leaflets for politicians. They will fund advertisements in national newspapers. And then, of course, there's the whole corrupt side of it, which is the government contracts business, whereby they get they help a minister to get into office, and then they get a very juicy government contract, and one assumes that there, by some mechanism, there's a kickback, so the minister gets a fair chunk of the profits, or an unfair chunk of the profits.
The government contract part is the centerpiece, I would say, of all of this. It was since
not eternal salvation for a whole nation. It's about money.
No,
is that what you're saying?
Unfortunately not. One question I would have to a person that was donating money to me before I would take that money, I'd be like, "Does your wife have a bond drawer?" She does. Okay, forget it. I don't want any of your money. But the idea that brethren related companies since the pandemic have made, I think the figure is something like, I can't remember if it's pounds or dollars, but it was like 2.4 billion in government contracts.
2.4 billion in pounds. So
that's like 4 billion.
Dollars, yeah.
Like that's 100 billion Canadian dollars.
Something like that.
Well, I watched a video, I think, of Bruce Hales. Is it his son, the dude with the dark hair, portly gentleman? I watched a promotional video about the Plymouth Brethren Church, and the promotion video about the church was about the Universal Business Team, which is, the collection of all the businesses that are involved in the church and owned by brethren, obviously. And it wasn't about salvation. It wasn't about being a better person. It wasn't about, doing good acts or kindnesses for people in the community. It was this Australian guy going, "Our church made $22 billion last year." And I'm like, holy fuck, what a sales job that is for fucking people's souls. We made $22 billion. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, is that really what this guy's all about? But it really did kind of lay out what they all are about, right? Which is about kettling entrepreneurship. It's about, incestuous business, keeping all the money between the fucking circles so that it doesn't leave the circles, and then taking that money and affecting evangelical change and forcing theocracy and the belief system of these fucking wackos onto 80% of the world, right? That's the way I look at it, because I've been involved in these things where, you're part of prayer groups and youth groups, and you go to church sermons, and it's very similar. These sounds are very similar. You were just involved in, you had to go to church way fucking more than I did, which is, I only went twice a week. But the goal is insulation. The goal is propagation for these churches and these cults. And the goal is really to create as much power and influence as you can create so that you can move those fences out on behalf of whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish as a cult, right? But what I want to know is, I guess I've answered my question. That's the reason for getting into politics. Do you know that if Pierre Poilievre is involved in this church? And do you know if or are they just using the church like the church is using them?
No, we don't know directly if Pierre is. I've no doubt that Pierre is their chosen candidate because he has a lot to say about religious freedom, which basically means keeping the any kind of oversight or accountability from being imposed on religious groups. We do know that Jonathan Dennis, the disgraced former Attorney General, was Poilievre's campaign manager for Alberta. We know he works closely with Gerald Schipper. We know that Poilievre was right next to, very close to Stephen Harper, both when Harper became Prime Minister for the first time and was sworn in on the cult Bible. And he was also right next to Stephen Harper when those 5 leading Brethren members were cheering him on for the front row. Equally, Jenny Byrne was Harper's campaign manager at that time and is Poilievre's campaign manager now. So Poilievre knows all about the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church and what they can do for him. I'm sure he would be on first name terms with those 5 brethren you saw on the front row in the video there.
Yeah, that should put a pep in your fucking don't vote for that guy step. Hey, James.
Yeah. Well, listen, I think the next month is going to be me trying my best to brand this organization as a cult more so than what I've already been doing. I just wanted to get into the ether and then connect the cult to all of their businesses. So that, oh, that's one of the cult businesses. That, oh, that's also another cult business. Oh, look at that cult business got all those government contracts, and just try to like get people to put those two things together so that people start talking about it. I'm not a legacy media fan, obviously, but shit, it would be nice if they would take on some of these stories, take on this, you know. Yeah.
Is there a reason why they haven't, Richard? That you can
Yes,
think of?
I spoke to I've been in contact with quite a famous journalist who has written some of these stories, and he says he's approached very top Canadian newspapers and media outlets, and they won't take them. And the reason is their lawyers are too afraid. It's not the journalists that's the problem. It's the editors and their lawyers, because they know that this is an incredibly well-funded cult, and you know they'll go through legal hell. I mean, even if the Brethren lose the case eventually, they've got the capability to string out lawsuits for several years, and the newspaper, the media outlet, has to finance all that legal activity, even if ultimately the cult loses. So it's just too big a financial risk for these.
This is a similar story to the Navigator thing. You know, Navigator's led by Jamie Watt. They're a crisis management firm. The quickest example I can think of was my own example. I'll make it quick though. Like, I got a contract to work for Post Media. I ruffled a couple of feathers, and then my Post Media editor called me and is like, "Do you know Jamie Watt?" And I'm like, "Well, not personally." He's like, "Well, your contract is canceled because we just got a call from Jamie Watt." Jamie Watt called because I was doing a story about a high profile person, and that was his lawyer. And so all that lawyer Jamie Watt had to do was call the Post Media lawyers, and it was done. In this case, what those editors are saying to that journalist is, "No, sorry, Gerald Shapur contacted my lawyers, and that was all we needed to not do the story." Gerald Shapur is like the Jamie Watt in this story, in the sense that the lawyer community, the whatever you want to count it, the general counsel community, is not very big. There's certain names, Marie Henein, Gerald Shapur, Jamie Watt, and a few others who are high profile attorneys, where it's like, if they make a phone call, the chances are the lower attorney on the other end of that line is going to do whatever they say. So you
talking about the same Jamie Watt that was convicted of passing bad checks about 25, 30 years ago? That guy?
That is correct. The same Jamie Watt that referred to your life as a file?
Yeah. When he tried to ruin my life. Yeah, he was involved in that too. I mean, I've got lots of experience with Jamie Watt. Great job. I mean, fucking guy does a great job of fucking people over for money. I mean, if you can get good work, if you can get it. But there's a human aspect here which bothers me, right? And I think it bothers a lot of people. I mean, just sitting in front of Richard and reliving his story and listening to his story and talking about how this has creeped its way into our political system. And I'm a huge fan of separating church and state. But what you're talking about, which is fascinating to me, is that not only is it an accepted fact that these guys are involved in politics, they're kind of rummaging around looking for fucking cheap government money, trying to sidle up to people that have pro-life views, and the rhetoric of the evangelical dogma and all the bullshit. If you can find a guy that's running for office, that's great. But what you're talking about is separation of church and state. They want that to go one way, right? They want to be able to separate church and state, but they don't want the state involved in the church to the point where they've put up enough legal barriers and they've got enough money where they can do that, number one. But it doesn't work the other way for them, right? They want to be absolutely involved in the state. They want to be absolutely involved in these decisions, but not for the betterment of Canadians, not for the betterment of human beings in this country. They want to subject, and this is what I get to all the time, they want to subject the rest of Canadians to the whims of their theocratic morality, to the whims of their dogma, to the whims of their policies, because they truly believe and need to believe that this is it. This is true. And because if it's not true, my God, right? Like, I mean, just the chaos that's involved in the lives of people that have to leave churches. But I find it fucking fascinating. And I also find it absolutely cowardly that they would put up these fucking legal markers and barriers in front of people so that they can move in and out of church and state, but the state stays away from that church because they're scared. Like I find this absolutely not just fascinating, but the hypocrisy involved. Not that these guys really give a shit about hypocrisy. Like it's on the list of things that's totally acceptable if they get what they want. But that's really what you're talking about. You're talking about the state not doing anything, about the church weeding its way into trying to kettle an entire country with this neo-theocratic bullshit. Right? That's exactly what this is. And on the way, they show up with buckets so they can collect money from people that they're really tight with, that give out sole source government contracts, and they just continue to feed that financial machine so that they can stay involved in creating chaos in our country.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the other thing that they are terrified of, or the other thing that the Brethren are terrified of, is their church coming under some kind of regulations like human rights laws, because they exercise this incredibly powerful coercive control. They break up families. They've been breaking up families for 70 years. They kick children, young teenage children, out onto the streets. And they do all that in the name of religion, and they get away with it because of what they call religious freedom, which says that, well, if it's your sincere religious belief, you can more or less do what the hell you like. And the state isn't going to interfere in it. And they're petrified that freedom they have, freedom from oversight, freedom from accountability, is going to come to an end. And it's the right wing, tends to be the right wing globally, that will protect those so-called religious freedoms, and it tends to be the left wing and the left wing globally that will tend to side with human rights as opposed to religious rights when it comes down to these matters. So they're petrified of losing their charitable status. They're petrified of losing their religious protection to do what the hell they like with people's lives and people's families and people's kids.
Yeah, hiding behind religious freedom. I'm not a fan of religious freedoms, by the way. Just so you know, I'm not a big fan.
And it weaponizes their faith too. It's one thing to not believe, like I don't believe, but it's quite another thing to take someone's religious beliefs and then weaponize them. Like in your case with your family and not being able to communicate with them, exemplified perfectly on Breaking Brethren, the documentary by Alex McIntosh, when Dennis Ragg was playing a conversation between himself and his 8-year-old son from years ago. And he was kicked out of the church. He was, I don't remember what the reason was. He actually to this day doesn't know what the reason was. And the recording of the phone call is basically him saying, look, son, I want to see you. I want you to come over. And his 8-year-old son is like, no, I don't want to see you. I am not going to see you. Because his son's faith was weaponized in such a way where it was like the church was higher as far as who that kid was supposed to respect than his own parent. And when that's the cards that are stacked against you, holy shit. And it's the faith that they had to weaponize in order to make that a reality. I can't, isn't it hilarious that we live in a world where we have to like spend hours and hours on podcasts dissecting things that are just so self-evidently cults? Like, does it feel strange to anyone else?
Well,
like
and the there's this like we don't live in a very humanistic time. We don't come from a humanistic group, right? We come from a group of people. It's like church is Sundays. You believe in God, you obey God, and it's a social tool. Like religion and church has always been a social tool, but people took it very personally. We come from Christian upbringings. We come from colonial backgrounds here in this country, right? We do. That's what Western civilization was founded on, was that settler colonialism, and settler colonialism was largely propped up by churches and dogma and religion and so we wanted America when it was founded. They wanted to be founded on the religious freedom, but what that really meant was, hey, listen, we want to be able to institute this hardline, born again, evangelical, Catholic, the Christian denominations. I know there's 40,000 of them, but the dogma all feeds into the same thing. But we're at a kind of a time when a lot of people are like, hey, listen, I'm starting to see how mean you guys are. Like, I'm starting to see some of the criminality. I'm starting to see how hateful you are. And if you asked me what the biggest sea change in my effort to rail against it and to uproot it and to allow people to see inside how these churches really work and how religion in Canada and North America in general works, it's used as a tool. It's used as a tool to kettle certain people. It's used as a tool to push those fences out so the people can operate literally under the guise of religious freedom as anything they want. Whether you're laundering money, that may sound familiar to you, Richard, through a church and the offering plate, whether you're using that money to prop up certain, political institutions to be able to force different groups into your stream of thinking and your ideology. That's literally what the freedom of religion is all about. They don't mean it, because what they're saying is, yeah, you not only have the freedom of religion, but you weighing in on anything we weaponize or any hate that comes from us. This is our religion. It's allowed. We're allowed to hate. We're allowed to take over Parliament, and we're allowed to storm the Capitol building, and we're allowed because it's our religion. It's subterfuge at the most basic level. Right. And then they'll cite political examples from the Bible where people did the same things. And because it's in the Bible, we should be doing it now, too, because we're God's chosen people. It's really fucking weird, if you ask me. It's not weird when you're in it. You're like, hey, fuck, we're on the inside. We got the deal, right? But when you get out of it, you're like, no one's on the inside. And you can clearly see why they want these things and why they want freedom of religion, which is that dog whistle that Pierre talks about every time he says something, like gatekeepers, reclaiming. It's like he's literally telling everybody in that community that I am going to fight for your right to continue to be hateful. At least that's what I hear. I could be wrong, but that's what I hear.
No, that's exactly right. And the whole God bless Canada bullshit that he's doing now, which is not really a dog whistle. It's more like, a dog foghorn, a dog horn, is very Americanized. It's I don't know how to connect this guy directly to the church. I don't know if it's even necessary. I think that there's enough time between now and whenever the next election is to at least tie the cult to a bunch of the interests and government contracts. And I think that's the only place that I'm going to try to focus. Not the only place. Just don't forget, since I did that interview with Cheryl Hope, the person who was who left the Plymouth Brethren years ago, and has since made allegations of sexual assault by one or more of the elders in the Maple Creek Plymouth Brethren, I have been inundated, and Richard, you as well, with people from all around the world sending me emails about sexual assault and physical assault and money laundering. I just got an email this morning about with someone in Alberta saying that her husband used to work for this company who made another government contract company who made desks for schools, and she said that when you would get hired there, and then eventually after a few months or whatever, you would be outcast, and it would be the Plymouth Brethren in the cafeteria, just like high school. It would be like Plymouth Brethren in the cafeteria of this company, and they wouldn't allow anybody who wasn't Plymouth Brethren to eat with them. And it's just, but the stories from around the world, from New Zealand, Australia, the UK, the United States, Canada, dozens and dozens of emails from people saying how awful this organization is. And by the way, the only thing that I ever pulled from the Bible is that as soon as I found out people got stoned in the Bible, I continued to get stoned constantly for the rest of my life. So,
attaboy. Good for you. Do you get a lot of that, Richard? Do you get a lot, like, since you've been talking about it, since you've opened up, and obviously since you've gone not on the offensive, you're just telling your story and trying to help other people that have had similar, really hateful, terrible, egregious experiences. But what are you getting back from people? Are you getting a lot of people that are speaking out? Are you getting in touch with people? And what's that response been like?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, some are prepared to speak out publicly. I think Cheryl Hope inspired a lot of people, basically, with her courage. Some are ready to speak out publicly. Some have long conversations with me privately. They're not ready to go public yet. Particularly interesting one I had couple of days ago was a guy who actually was very close to the leadership in the Brethren, I think in the 90s, and he was, I think he must have been a bit of an electronics whiz kid or something, because he was very much involved in their surveillance activities. And I think back then they were less using private investigators, and actually there was quite a lot of using their own members to surveil and spy on both current members of the church and on persons who had recently left the church. And yes, they were literally doing burglaries. They were literally breaking into houses to install bugs and surveillance devices and wiretapping. And you know, I'm trying to work on the guy. I'm trying to persuade him that, look, it'd be super helpful if you could come on the podcast and talk about this stuff. But he's afraid. He's afraid. And you know, I hope he'll. I mean, he's right afraid, and I hope he'll overcome that and take the risk and speak out, because you know, this is criminal. This isn't just exercising their legitimate religious rights as they exist under law at the moment. They're going way outside that. They're engaged in a whole string of criminal activities. I mean, for example, the guy on that front row at Harper's speech, the guy in the middle, Brad Mitchell, he sent to David Wallace, and I've got the email, he sent the my wife's phone log to David Wallace to try and help David Wallace to hunt me down. Now, my wife didn't even have an itemized phone bill at the time, so it wasn't something they got by going through our garbage. He obtained that directly from the telecoms company.
Yeah.
And that's just blatant criminality. There's no possible legal way of doing that.
It's fucking wild. I could talk to this guy all day. I could talk to you all day, Richard. I could talk.
He has a nice soothing voice, doesn't he?
Yeah, he really does. He's a Brit too. That's right. Like,
Yeah, no,
where in England are you from?
People always string out the conversation. I just realize after a while they're just listening to the accent. They don't care what I actually say.
Are you from England? Yeah.
Yeah.
Where?
Cambridge.
Essex. Yeah. I'm an Essex boy. Just
so really? Oh, right. Yeah, neighbouring county. Yeah. Yeah. Essex man doesn't mean anything to Canadians, but
no, it doesn't. I'm an Essex man.
Which is probably a good thing for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. You guys are pretty much the same shade of paste, right?
Yeah. Oh, dude, we share the same pigment. Yeah, and probably similar teeth.
Yeah, probably. So probably. I mean, Essex man, to explain, James, is kind of equivalent to Neanderthal, but not so complimentary. Yeah.
Oh, Catholic.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. It's just when I grew up, I was like, "Where are we from?" And my dad's like, "Essex," but don't tell anybody when we go home. Yeah.
So it's like Peterborough. Is that kind of like
Peterborough? Effectively Peterborough, Keswick. You know,
Oshawa,
north of the city. The Schwa. Yeah. If you're like a Schwa dude, same thing. It's the same thing. Yeah, no, it's an incredible opportunity to kind of learn a little bit about it, because I've watched all your podcasts with James, and obviously I've read some of your material, which you've been putting together for quite some time. And the book is significant that you have on these guys, and obviously, you know, the support grows as you continue to, you know, speak out and just kind of tell your truth and talk about that's your truth. Talk about your experience. Talk about the things that you've been through. You know, talking about subterfuge and talking about how these guys are involved in it. And listen, I wouldn't be talking about this stuff, and it's not like I've got this incredible raging heart on to do in a religion that abused me and my family for a long period of time. The reason it is a part of it, I think maybe subconsciously a little bit. So it's kind of the fun part for me. It's like I don't really have a lot of fear when it comes to this kind of stuff, because as an apostate, I understand their apologetics from back to front. You know, I know the tricks, I know the rules, I know the runes, I know where the bodies are hidden. And it's super easy for me to actually get inside someone's belief system and go, okay, explain these 4 things to me, or these 3 things to me, and then you know, saliently, and then you can continue to believe what you do. But I don't feel like doing that, because, you know, part of that freedom of religion is like a lot of people find comfort in religion, but where religion continues to mystify me is when it's used to hurt people, and that's what we're talking about today.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah. and it's used to enrich people. I mean, it's you could regard it as a toolkit of psychological manipulations which can be used for good or for harm. And in the wrong hands, it's used to make people incredibly rich at the expense of others. And the other thing is, I am quite certain that the people at the top of these abusive cults, they don't believe all this bullshit. They're not Christians. They purely use it as a psychological money-making tool.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and to curate influence, which is the stuff. Yeah, it's like Christian Scientology, is it not? I mean, that's kind of what you're talking about. The beatings and the sexual assault, and not just the business of it. The effort. I don't know if you remember. Have you seen Going Clear, the Scientology documentary? If you have seen it, it's fucking awesome. They talked about how they were going to lose their tax exempt status or might not get it. This is about 20 years ago, and David Miscavige and the church decided to do what you guys did, with gay marriage and Stephen Harper back in the day, where you would flood the DOJ with lawsuits, hundreds of thousands of lawsuits. And the DOJ was like, it's going to take us 20 years to weed through this. Just give them their tax deductible status and allow them to do whatever they want. It sounds incredibly similar.
It was actually
a tactical perspective.
The Scientology thing was actually worse than that with the IRS, because they inundated with lawsuits, not against the IRS, against the individual IRS agents. That's how specific and micro they were at managing those lawsuits. And so you had like 100 agents that were all getting sued at the same time. Yeah. And then so the IRS itself was just like, okay, enough of this shit. Just give them their tax exempt status,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the journalists that I've been speaking to that sent a copy of the Klondike Papers to, he told me that he had done written articles on the Scientology, and they actually raided his office. They actually broke in and went through all his stuff, and that's just exactly the same mentality that the Brethren have.
Well, that makes me wonder if someone's going to try and break in and steal what I don't have in my house. That's where I am. Do they still follow you around? They're still bugging you, Richard?
I haven't seen any sign of them recently. I'm sure they'd love to know where I am.
He's passed them on to me.
Yeah. They're all following James now.
Are they following you? You getting bugged?
I still don't know who it was that suspiciously sat in my driveway the other day, twice. But when you do this kind of thing, I mean, that's the weird part. When you're dealing with an organization like this, you don't know if what you're seeing is them or someone else, until you can confirm. I know that a couple of my guests have had their computers hacked. I know that that there is an ongoing, just a daily, like at least a half a dozen a day attempts for me to click mysterious links, especially on LinkedIn, where people in the know that the Plymouth Brethren are all over LinkedIn. It's like the only site they're allowed to use or something, right? Because they connects all their businesses together. And every day I go look at messages in there, and some mysterious person sends me a message about clicking some link that starts with a Q instead of a W. So I'm not going to click that. So,
yeah, smart.
But but again, it's just one of those things where it's like, is it coincidental? Is it them? I think it's them, but I don't know for sure. So you just keep going, plow ahead, and rely on the bravery of people like Richard and Cheryl Hope and Carmen Drever and hope that and Dennis Ragg, and hope that that we can finally brand this organization, because it's a household name in the UK. It's a household name in Australia and New Zealand. It's not a household name here yet. So that's what my mission is, to make it a household name. So
I think they probably like that they're not a household name here yet. I mean, being able to operate under the covers has been probably a huge benefit for them, right, Richard? Yeah. I mean,
100%. Yeah. The last thing they want is anyone. I mean, when they go and see politicians and so on, they don't say who they are. They just come up as, concerned businessman or something else. They're actually embarrassed of their own stupid.
Yeah, dude, and that's the fucking best part of this whole story for me. It's like they have to operate in the shadows, because if they say that quiet parts out loud, everybody will laugh them out of the fucking room.
Yeah, right? And I mean, look at their meeting halls. Their meeting halls, no windows, no doors, no signage, nothing. Just like a warehouse. Yeah.
Really? Yep. Are there church pews? Like, what's the inside of the church like?
No, it's just like an auditorium. It's like a full circle auditorium.
Do you have to give money like offering like they do in other churches? Or no?
Oh yeah.
What's the percentage? Do you tithe?
No,
10%?
they don't. Well, most of the money actually comes through the businesses and through all kinds of commercial schemes. I mean, they have this very clever scheme whereby they will, they have this kind of online advertising. They have a weekly, what they call a silver bulletin, which is kind of bits of religion and bits of commercial advertising mixed up. So, for example, they will have a promotion for a certain insurance company to get your insurance from. And then Brethren members, when they apply for this insurance, they quote a discount code. And then the insurance company gives a kickback directly to the church. So they treat their 55,000 members as a kind of perfect captive commercial source of income. And big companies like, for example, Air Canada or Walmart or, any other big national or international company can kind of buy into this market. The Brethren will make sure, or rather the church leadership will make sure that the members buy from Company X, and Company X pays money to the church for access to the market.
Oh,
it's crazy. And they call it Levitical givings instead of tithings.
They call it Levitical. It's from that Leviticus numbers. What's the Pentateuch? First 5 books of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Leviticus is in there, I think.
Yeah. They love Leviticus. Yeah, that's where they get all their bad ideas from, because that's got all the nasty bits about priests and stoning and what to do if you're caught shagging a sheep. Yeah.
Run like hell. That's what you do if you get caught banging a sheep in the Bible. That's where the eye for an eye stuff is. It's in Leviticus. It's like if you, one of those books. Old Testament's great. And if you want to know something, like when I say great, I mean it's fucking hilarious. The Old Testament's great that way, because what happens is you can get all the real hardcore shit out of the Old Testament. You don't pay attention to the New Testament, which is the Gospels. First 4 books of the New Testament, the Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Like the Orthodoxes, they look at that and they go, "That's new thinking. We can't like love thy brother, all that other stuff." No, this is eye for an eye. Fuck someone over before they fuck you over. Any means necessary to literally put out the word of God and kill anybody who isn't a believer. That's literally where fundamentalism in Christianity and evangelicism lives. It lives in the Old Testament. Not a lot of people know that. So
100%. Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, in some ways, Jesus was the ultimate whistleblower. I mean, he was just blowing the whistle on all that shit and saying, "Look, the priests are ripping you off and taking money off you." And all the stuff that they're actually literally stoning you to death for, they're actually doing themselves, and that's why they killed the guy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, a lot of these fundamentalist churches are much happier in the Old Testament.
Yeah, because the Old Testament's like, you want to fuck that chick? Go ahead. Go ahead, because if you want to give her a Christian baby, it's better than having an infidel baby. Go ahead and bang that. That's literally
polygamy was mandatory, not let alone discouraged in the Old Testament. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Jesus' dad was a psychotic fucking asshole. Let's be honest. Like he was. The Amalekites don't exist because of Jesus' dad. He just said, "Smite them all," and they did.
Yeah,
genocide.
And you know what? Yeah. Sodom and Gomorrah sounded like a fucking great time in the Old Testament. That sounded like a party. God's like, "Go and crush that party." I'm like, whoa. Can we just go in for like a few hours and see how it goes?
My bracelet. I have a bracelet still, God. I can get in.
Dean was clearly paying attention in church from time to time anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's my curse is that I know the Bible back to front. And, I understand. I went to Bible school. I went to Bible Christian school. I went to high school was literally a residential evangelical school, so, sitting through like this conversation has been like a really cool trip down memory lane, in a way where it doesn't, and I'm not triggered at all by it. I'm like, oh, I remember that wackiness. Oh yeah, that was bullshit too. Oh, the weeping and gnashing of teeth. Oh yeah, burning forever. That old cherry. Yeah.
I would have been beaten and like if I was raised in where you guys were raised, and I had my own personality, I would have been beaten and excommunicated and all the above, because all I remember from being a kid in Catholicism was lying during confession and then confessing the next week that I lied the last time.
To be fair, you would have gotten beaten for a million other reasons other than your inability to follow the religion.
Probably.
The priest was like, "This kid's fucking annoying."
Yeah, I have 4 daughters. He's already been through 3 of them. What the fuck's going on here? Yeah.
Well, Richard, listen, I want to thank you for this and really appreciate you doing this. And I apologize for not having you on the show. But you come out, and I'll be honest, you come with a ton of heat, and not like personal heat where it's like, I'm afraid for my life, because clearly I'm not. But your story comes with, I understand the stress a little bit, right? I understand the stress because of where it came from, but I also know the players. And I'm not going to talk about the little things that have been going on, here, because I'm not going to feed into that. And it doesn't matter because this is your story, but these people are very real. This group is incredibly real. And it is a major, major fucking problem in this country right now that leads into where we are. And where we are is trying to fight against this theocratic uprising of people who are literally cognitively so stupid. Because here's the thing, I know these guys are good business people, but you have to be literally cognitively delayed to believe in a sky daddy, or to believe that some fat guy in Australia is your only conduit to heaven and the afterlife. Like, you really have to be incredibly stupid. So congratulations on not being one of those people. And you also have to be brainwashed. There are a lot of people that are smart that are brainwashed, but people that have the ability to reason traditionally have the ability to reason themselves out of this as well. So, leading and marshaling this group of cognitively delayed people in Canada, which we've seen, that was the convoy. That's who this is. These are these people. This is this movement. That is what is largely propping up, the most successful entrance in the Conservative Party. They have very, very important friends, that have led this country. They've got friends in high places. They've got great lawyers, obviously. And it is a joke. It is a long-standing joke. And you should take this country, or you should take this movement in this country, if you're listening to this podcast or watching this show on YouTube, Dean Blundell Show on YouTube, Dean Blundell TV on Twitch. Thank you very much. Apple, Google, Spotify. But if you're watching this, you need to take this seriously, because the creep has been on for a really, really long time. And the fact that these are not well-known stories, and the fact that there are some really high-profile journalists who are trying to present this information and keep getting shut down, they're getting shut down for a reason. Now, they're getting shut down because they're afraid. They're afraid because these conversations come with real-life consequences. I talk about my experience in the church because I know no one's going to come after me from that church, right? They all hate me. I've got friends that won't talk to me that I went to high school with, friends that think that I've fallen out of favor. Lost is a word that a lot of these people use. You're lost. You don't know what you're talking. You've left the church. You're lost. No, man, I've never been fucking happier. I've never been more sure of my time on this earth being really incredibly important. And also, if I find it hard to be lost from a religion that promises the afterlife with zero proof. Like, not only no proof of the afterlife, you don't get a condo. There's nothing. When you die, you go in the dirt, and that is it. And so when a lot of people is, oh, you're misrepresenting. No. This is what I believe, right? I've got lots of time for people that believe the opposite. Where I'm focusing my attention when it comes to religion seeping into the lives of Canadians and our political institutions and our conversations is when it's being weaponized against good people trying to just live their lives. So that's my goal. I mean, we've talked a lot about and made fun of religion, and I know a lot of people need it. A lot of people find comfort in certain belief systems if you can't process the whole concept of death, which is traditionally why these things exist. Is that you can't explain the unexplainable. And so it's easier to just adopt a belief system that belongs to somebody else. And if they're going to enrich you like they do in this church, my God, that's just Bonanza City, right? Like, you're just, oh my God, I'm in the right thing. I get all this money, I get taken care of, and my afterlife is taken care of. You don't have to think. You don't have to do any reasoning when you adopt someone else's belief system. You don't. And you get to benefit from it as long as you're in it. And you have to offer fealty to it, or the resulting consequences are eternal hell. That is not fucking normal. That is not a great way to live. And it's just an unattainable fucking weirdness that should never be involved in our day-to-day. And it should never be forced on people. So I'm really grateful that you joined us. And sorry I vamped at the end there, Richard. I apologize.
No, you did good.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate
Well
it.
done.
Great to meet you, too. Great to meet a fellow Brit.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. James, thanks for setting this up. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. See you guys.
Great to see you. Richard Marsh, Whistleblower, James D. Fiore, Blackball the podcast. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate you doing this. At James D. Fiore on Twitter, and I'm not going to tell you where you can find Richard Marsh. It's just better that way for everybody. It's better that way. Any way you want it, that's the way you need. No, I believe all that too. I really do. It's the reason why the things that you see in this country look like they're coming apart at the seams. It really is. Is that you've got 80% of Canadians that are trying to get on with their lives. They're trying to figure out how to live. They're trying to figure out how to be. And you got dicks like Jordan Peterson. You've got theocratic institutions. You've got fealty to just fugazi religious groups and belief systems that not only are not realistic, they're born in pure fantasy. Pure fantasy. Heaven, pure fantasy. Hell, pure fantasy. Purgatory, same thing. That's my opinion. But unless someone offers me legitimate proof to the opposite, which, in human history, there's never been any, other than to suggest that that you and I are going down the wrong path, and a better way is to have someone else give you your belief system, it's all bullshit. All of it. All of it. All of it. But if you want to believe it, that's your business. And I support you having the ability to believe it. But when you take that stuff and you weaponize it and you hurt other people with it, goodness, you got my attention. Got my attention. And everybody else's. And here's the thing, is that we're told that religion's a no-go area. Not anymore. Not when you bring it to us, right? Not when you bring it to me. Not when you bring it to Ottawa. Not when you hurt people with it. Not when you hammer out fucking death threats and tweets. Not when you try and steal a life experience from people in this country that just want to get by. No. No, sorry, Bob. Anyway, that's it for us. Have a great day. Sorry, it was a little disjointed today. Appreciate Locke coming in when he was here. Ryan Lindley when he was here. They just kind of disappeared. Still love them. Don't know when they're coming back. Thanks to James for joining us. Thanks to Richard Marsh. Thanks to MUBIN SHaikh. Follow him at Mr. MUBIN SHaikh on Twitter. He's incredible. And don't forget to download our podcast wherever you get the audio versions, Google, Apple, Spotify, etc. And if you can, hit subscribe on our YouTube channel, Dean Blundell Show on YouTube. You can also get us on Twitch, Dean Blundell TV on Twitch. Super simple. That's how you find us. And thanks to our friends at Kivlaw, kivlaw.ca. Go to Kivlaw today. If you're in trouble legally, or if you need some legal advice, legal help, if you did something wrong you shouldn't have done, if you did something and you're not sure why you're in trouble for it, or if you've been accused of something you didn't do, there's nothing worse. It's super unfair. My friend Rob Kivlikin at kivlaw.ca and his group of defense attorneys will take care of you, and they'll tell you the truth. Not what you want to hear, but they will tell you the truth, and they'll help you get your life back. That's the most important part of going through a legal issue, is that you want someone to tell you the truth. You want someone to do a great job, someone to show up. That's my friend Rob Kivlikin at kivlaw.ca. Make sure that you check him out today if you need some legal advice, legal help, you're in trouble, or you just need help navigating something that you have no idea because, hey, you're not a lawyer. He is, and he's got a team of them that actually are good human beings that do great work for other human beings to give them every opportunity for success in life. Again, go to kivlaw.ca today or email Robert at kivlaw.ca if you've got an issue. Thanks to our friends at Easy Auto Financial for making this possible as well. Go to easyautofinancial.ca today if you're looking to get financing for a vehicle. Super simple. These guys do all the work for you. You don't have to sit there and hum and haw about your credit rating. They don't even give a crap. They want to make sure you get a car, so they make sure you get a car and make someone else pay for your financing. Yes, that's right. Free financing for your vehicles. Use them today because they'll turnkey everything for you. You don't have to do anything. All the forms they'll fill out. And they're very good people that have been able to find a place in the market to be able to help people buy cars. So make sure that you use them today. Use easyautofinancial.ca. Again, easyautofinancial.ca today. Sign up, no obligation as well. And Ed's Fine Imports, it is Gitch, Gitch. Gitch3 is your promo code. That promo code gets you a free pair of underwear when you buy 3 or more. Plus, he's got a massive online store, so you can shop for jeans, you can shop for shirts, you can shop for suits, and he's got bespoke stuff, so you can go into edsfineimports.com when you go to the website, and you can also shop online for shoes, jeans, blazers. They've got huge sales, and of course his Gitch. That's what makes the stuff work. GITCH3, Canadian boxer briefs made in Canada, pouch in the front, super soft, super breathable. Try them today at Ed's Fine Imports, Easy Ed. That's his other brand, Easy Ed's. There's no pouch in the front. In fact, there's no front. It's just a waistband. No, go to edsfineimports.com. Check them out today. Don't forget to sign up for a newsletter as well at deanblundell.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Really appreciate you hanging out with us. That was a lot of fun. Intense. That was intense. That's the reality of the world we live in. It's intense. Have a great day. See you tomorrow. Bye.